All right, that cut off a little quick. We are live, and hello. We have Luke. We have Dutch Sense. We are live.
Hello.
You got such a
How's
good voice,
everybody?
Dutch.
Oh, hey, thank you, yeah, guys. Just so everybody knows, this is not pre-recorded. The time now is 12:40 p.m. Central Time.
Of this man's life that he will never get back, but it's because it's been a long time coming, and we are finally here. We have gotten to know each other a little bit, discussed the theories, discussed the discoveries, the star forts, the symmetries in the terraformed structure of our reality, and then the cycles of energies that you have been forecasting, working on for a very long time, Dutch, and then Luke stepping up here, ancient Historia, like killing it with the Gog Magog, looking into what actually is Tartaria in eastern Siberia.
One of people here and say I turned up uninvited.
You were invited, and it was posted in a link with like a good 20 of like the top alternative history content producers, and the new kid on the block steps up, killing it. 2 legends right now. I guess.
Hey, I'm honored to be on with both of you.
Honestly, glad to have this catastrophic multi-disaster happening right now. Is there anywhere on alert for an upcoming high earthquake, Dutch, or how is the cycle right now?
Yes, actually, we are. We've got a warning going right now for 3 more days for South America on the north side of South America, right next to Colombia, right where Central America meets into South America. So we're looking for up to, it could be a big earthquake. It's based upon the deep earthquake. We had a deep earthquake that happened 10 days ago, and down below the area, a shift basically took place. And we're going to look for, and we watch for up to 14 days on big, deep earthquakes. And we're getting down to the end of the watch. We have 3 more days to go in South America, and it's right in the area where we're looking. It's gone what I call quiet, radio silent. It's gone. Well, actually, hold on. A new 5 just hit over east of there. Anyway, we're looking at the north part of South America for up to 7.8 by the end of Tuesday night.
All right.
Yeah, so it should hit. I mean, the chances are pretty high.
No, sorry, Dutch. We're going to pause you right there. And then for those that don't know, that is Dutch impromptu, just explaining and giving his regular earthquake forecast for specific areas of the world, as he has always done, as if like is basically a regular weather channel, but for these predictions. And I didn't have what he was describing accurately on the screen for that, but that is what you do on the regular, and it's like no other. I'm going to shut up and let you explain yourself a little bit more.
Oh, no, you're awesome. You're awesome. Guys, just so you know, we've been talking for a few hours, and he showed me his whole laboratory as well as several other things that are kind of behind him and so forth, Bernie there. And I just want to say that it's just, it's really cool to be able to interact with you guys like this, because I don't normally get to get on and talk about earthquakes live except for on my stream. And so, for instance, with the deep earthquake that I'm talking about, everybody can just imagine in their mind's eye, they can imagine somebody lifting on the underside of a big piece of stone. And whether it's round or flat or disc or whatever, that when you lift on the underside of something, and if it's got cracks up through it, you can understand that the pressure goes to those cracks that are in whatever you're lifting on. And in this case, something is lifting on the underside of South America right now that's coming up through the plate, and it's going to hit right as it comes up through the plate. It hits up at the top, and that's where the break happens, and that's when we get a big earthquake. And what's led me into interacting with Bernie and so forth, guys, just so if you don't know, a series of earthquakes, how can I put this easily? There's a series of earthquakes have started striking below certain things that you may have heard about before, like what people call star forts. Small ones, star forts, bastion forts that like skeptics would talk about as being just like with cannons on top, all the way up to structures that are the size 300 miles or more long. Structures that I've found on either side. Like, for instance, I found 3 huge 300-mile long star forts in the United States that make up the whole west coast of the United States, 1,000 miles long total. It's indisputable that they're in the shape of star forts. But what I found is disturbing. In the middle of each one of them is a military base that's been built. Vandenberg Air Force Base in the middle of one of them, where we do space launches from the pinnacle tip of it. Edwards Air Force Base, where we launch our nuclear bombers from. On the side of it is Area 51 of all places and our nuclear test sites. On the other side of it is 29 Palms Marine Bombing Range. That's just one of them. Another one I found has Facebook data center is built in the middle of one of the 300-mile long star forts on the West Coast. It's deliberately right in the middle of the pinnacle tip, right where Vandenberg is down in California, in its star fort. And there's earthquakes striking below each one. That's how I found this stuff. And I was already looking into mud flood. I was already looking into other stuff. But when I started to find the earthquakes below this is where I then started to look at your guys' channels. And then, of course, a whole series of other things have been discovered and so forth. I hate to get so serious, man, but like this is how I found these guys. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff. I think I'm going to show it and so forth, what I found, and the star fort's 300 miles long and Facebook data center. We'll
it's like, sorry, I'm scrolling through all of like, you got so many of your own live streams going over of literally the points showing every single live recorded earthquakes that happen throughout each day and the cycles of it all, the magnitudes, and it's just an epic amount of proportion of work that for those that do know you're 600,000 on YouTube and 50,000 on Twitch right now. It should be in the millions if we weren't all so shadow bound, but regardless, trying to find the one where you were doing showing the star fort measurements across North America, these alignments of these 300 miles of these giant terraformed structures that you found, and then like you've connected them with some of these old star fort maps that we've been looking into, for instance, of like St. Louis there, and when it was in the city was an actual star city with the star fort in it, and that you found modern day today, like a bunch of us in the community, there's been a few videos done of it, this water tower that's left over in the old St. Louis in the center of it, and that it's just this giant Romanesque huge tower. That's,
be able to bring up a picture of that tower?
Yeah, I didn't have it on.
Guess what they're building there now? Guess what they're building there now at that tower? They are building the new United States Geospatial Agency that does all the LiDAR mapping for the whole world. They're building it right there at that tower, right? Like just on that block.
Wow. I was going to ask,
U.S. government took it all over.
What do you think the end of this is? Not the end, but you know, the result of all these earthquakes. What do you presume is going to happen?
Well, on the earthquake angle, like for instance, with the earthquakes next to the star forts and at the pinnacle tips of each one of these things, it's got to be some kind of very low frequency or lower, ultra low frequency or extremely low frequency, hence the 300 miles long. And that but with the earthquakes in general, that there's actually there's nobody's going to believe this. I've showed this in a video, but I will show it again when we do another longer live. Starting off the tip of Antarctica, there's the tower. Yeah, there's the tower.
Yeah, this one right here is the tower. I'm not going to play it because I don't know the video. I don't want to get copyright strikes.
Wait.
Yeah, and for just a little what's going on, we are live on Autodidactic on Andreas Surdis, my Burn Eye channel, my Crypto Alchemist, and on my Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. And next time we'll also be live on your Twitch, where you constantly have your model running your active forecasting, measurement, or live.
The G word. It's the G word. It's the forbidden globe word. But now, hey, you know what? I could address it right now, actually, just so, because I know our audience overlap and that there's people that, you know, are all over the board and they want to know where I stand, and we can just bury the hatchet right now. And I was joking about it earlier, but I can stand by it. I think I could present evidence to show it that Earth
100%. Actually, I got to pause you 1 sec. Right before you start, I have an announcement to make. I officially am a trash can earther. It is both flat and round, and it is also the hypercube, essentially. And now
he beat me to the punch. That Earth is flat all the way around, and that I think I could prove this. Think of a diamond. Think of a princess cut diamond. Okay. Now I can't prove this visually yet with some kind of thing launched into supposed space, but that the continents themselves, guys, that we can take and fold Earth like a piece of origami, and that we'll find that Earth is faceted like a jewel, almost like a floating jewel in space or whatever. That it comes to points, not like a coronavirus or something. Hate to say the C word and get you banned, but like a diamond or something, like Princess Cut diamond, and that there would be sections of Earth that are flat and other sections that are round, but that it comes to points, and the continents, guys. Okay. What I was going to tell you, and there's no easy way to tell you this, earthquakes are striking down below the pinnacle tip of each continent. And what I found is that each continent, like for instance, Antarctica, when you look at Antarctica, you see the ice shape and stuff, but you have to zoom out to see the plate boundaries. That Antarctica itself is in the shape of a pentagonal star fort, the entire continent, the entire outside edge of Antarctica. But to see it, you have to back Earth out about a planet away to see it. I found it by the earthquakes striking below the tip of Antarctica, and it spreads to the next plate and the next plate, which Burn, you've seen my video showing those plates, and that the earthquakes are spreading from plate to plate to plate. It's got to be some kind of wireless power that's going from plate to plate to plate. Right. It's got to be.
You said something there, like, that just made me think of something, which is that it's like we were talking before the stream. Like, I think everything is more complex than we imagine. We're simple, right? So this is just my opinion on it, and I'm not judging anyone that has a different opinion, because we're all talking about things that are nuts in the face of the consensus. So it doesn't really matter what shape we think the Earth is. But I think that there's like this element of complexity which increases. So whatever we imagine, it's something we can't imagine. So arguing over whether it's round or flat or whatever, like you say, when it comes to something that is round that is flat, all the way round, like
here's the thing: there's no sense of ever arguing, because both models literally physically work, and now there's like an equal or large enough percentage of consciousness believing and existing in each model, and that like they both all simultaneously can't be proven wrong and do coexist each other. It's like it's just senseless, and accept the multiverse.
Well, this is what I mean about complexity. So, for example, we imagine it as either round or flat, But as we were talking before the stream, what about this notion of it being something, something further, like a hypersphere with multiple dimensions, so we perceive it as a 3D object when it's actually something much more? Well, if you expand upon that theory, the idea that we live on some kind of simplistic plane in itself is erroneous, because we know, even from science itself, if we look at things like the double slit experiment, we have evidence that consciousness affects reality. So if you guys don't know, the double slit experiment is they fire a photon through a sheet when nobody's looking, and it behaves like a wave. But then when they put it some kind of camera to record the action, it behaves as a particle. Now that same principle could be affected to you, because if you look at a game, you guys might have seen before, a view of a game from above. So what the character views is loaded, but what the character can't view isn't. So whilst you're looking forward, you see all these trees and buildings, but everything behind you is not there until you turn around, and then it's loaded. Well, reality is kind of the same. So when you're not observing it, it doesn't necessarily behave in the same way as when you do observe it.
So, this is a well-established scientific fact, right?
This image right here.
Yeah.
I got this right here is supposedly an image captured of the electron movement of a hydrogen around a hydrogen atom or photon or electron cloud of a hydrogen atom, like sacred geometry. It's just higher dimensional geometric.
I noticed in that picture around the outside edge of the sphere of that. Okay, look at the top left-hand side of there, or the far left-hand side.
It's like these 4 holes, isn't it?
Okay, do you see the overlapping spiral nature of that? Okay, that same pattern is something that you have drawn, and we were looking at on one of your T-shirts, which I'm not getting mystical, I'm not getting occult, I'm getting scientific, and just with cymatics, that the shape that you just showed is, there it is on a shirt right there. Okay, this is the famous flower of life. And the flower of life is decorated across
seed of life with this amount, and I call this design the weed of life, because it is the seed of life.
Yes.
I don't have any merchandise, right?
It's across every ancient Egyptian tomb is painted with the flower of life. But that you see that all the way down at that microcosmic level, down at the level of the supposed picture of the, what was that, a hydrogen? Is that what you said, hydrogen?
Yeah, I believe that's an atomic hydrogen, the electron cloud of an atomic hydrogen molecule. And this,
you can see the edges of the flower of life on the edges. Now it goes into a spiral shape, which becomes harder to see three-dimensionally in the atom there. But
right. So this one here is definitely H atom orbitals. I believe it was the Sapphire project that was able to capture these. So it's like 1 by 1 and like 1 by 2, like this as they go through. Like, it's pretty insane how light hydrogen is turning from wave to solid to these geometries of formation, I guess. And
are you familiar with Mr. Fix-It Rick's work?
Oh yeah, he's Mr. Fix-It Rick. Rick hosts the Keshe Foundation Zooms every week.
Oh, he does he?
Oh yeah, he's epic.
Okay, old video I just dropped into I dropped a link to you. It's one of his old videos, which he actually was playing. It's the spinning plasma ball experiment. And in the spinning plasma ball experiment, which we can show at a later time, because this video is only supposed to be a few minutes long, that when I get on and do this longer live with you guys, we will watch that video from Mr. Fix-It Rick, which shows a standard plasma ball spinning, okay? And the plasma ball is filled with gas, and the electrical field inside is creating the tendrils of plasma going out. You put your hands on the outside edge of the plasma ball. Now, when Mr. Fix-It Rick takes that plasma ball and he hooks it up to an actual physical rotating motor going several thousand RPM. Okay. And he brings it up to speed at several thousand RPM. And what happens is something amazing. The tendrils that are normally just going around on the inside of the plasma ball that we would all just put our hands on the outside and would, of course, go to ground and try to seek our hands. Instead, it becomes organized inside of the plasma ball. And it forms its own North Pole, equator, and South Pole, the plasma, as it's rotating. As he rotates it, it brings it into, he didn't call it anything. He didn't name it. I called it hyper oscillation, that he took the already electrically oscillating plasma and then brought it up to speed, 3,000 or 4,000 RPM, and it broke into separate magnetic fields inside of the plasma ball. It's amazing. It's the most amazing video. And I dropped it in chat if you want to go look at it yourself, or I don't think you want to show it on here just because we don't have permission to show it. But that is for your consideration, guys. You should go. There it is. I think he'll let us play it because he let me play it on my stream. I asked him for permission to play it, and he said, okay.
I should. Oh, it shared the wrong one. Sorry.
And it breaks apart into 3 separate magnetic fields inside of the plasma globe. It's amazing. Then something even more amazing happens, that it starts to pulse. And you'll see it as he brings it up to speed. It's one of the more amazing things. It's proof that, now what I think, if he would have taken this thing and had some kind of scale next to it, we had a 1 gram weight on it, I think it might even be generating anti-gravity. I think so. I think it would generate anti-gravity, what he's doing. Wait till you see it. It's amazing. Again, the plasma forms into its own North Pole, equator, and South Pole. By just rotating it fast.
What's interesting is that image that we were talking about before looked like it had, the cymatic pattern looked like it had 4 poles as opposed to 2, didn't it?
I sure did. There it is. Okay. So as he brings it up to speed, it immediately seeks out its own naturally, it just forms into its own North Pole. Okay. You see it. It goes straight to the top. Then as it goes faster, the tendrils organize. See the magnetic field break apart? See it? And it starts to form into a North Pole, an equator, and a South Pole. See it? It's literally, you're visualizing the Earth's magnetic field, whether it's flat or round. It's the most amazing video. And I shared this a few years ago. And there's all sorts of inventions that come off of this, as well as just proof on things.
I see what you're saying right there. Like, look at that.
Hyper oscillation, I'm calling it. When you take something that's already electrically oscillating and then physically rotate it fast. So hyper, right? Oscillation.
Spinning and then the plasma, exactly.
You add that to the rotation of like the universe. Does that mean that we could be looking at natural versions of these in forms of like stars and stuff?
Oh, I think this is what's going on inside of the quote unquote center of the Earth and the center of the sun. There's got to be. And I bet you that on a super huge scale, it would be super hot. I mean, obviously that's electricity in a 5 volts.
But alone, I don't want to be really basic about this, but we've all slid across carpet as a child. We know what friction does.
Yeah, it's got to produce heat. It has to. And then I would imagine this would vaporize pretty much anything.
Just that spinning against the air itself is going to be creating a shit ton of friction.
Yeah, because this is a vacuum. That's a vacuum sealed neon gas, right?
Yeah. Wow. Fucking hell. Well, that just shows then, doesn't it? You can
see. So when you rotate a plasma at a certain RPM, it breaks apart into its own magnetic field and generates North and South Pole on its own. Perfect north, obviously, off the tip. And then there's your equator and your tropics, and it's pulsing down to the South Pole.
Plasma, usually. Do you know
so that? Awesome. What was that? I didn't hear.
What temperature is plasma usually around?
Well, see, there's different types of plasma and cold fusion, and the blue, purple, the UV, the cold plasma is usually around room temperature-ish or like lower, and then your hot infrared, orange, yellow, or orange reddish, higher density waves and fields go.
Totally, and power too. The power behind it would also, of course, you put more voltage and amperage into something, it can also increase the temperature. Plasmas, like ionospheric plasmas from HARP, for instance, and other high frequency radio wave projects, can get up into the multi hundreds of degree, 500 degrees, and so forth. 500 Fahrenheit, what is that?
Sorry.
400.
I gotta pause and interject. Shout out to Ben waking up analogs here in the Zertis chat, which reminds me to bring up the Crystal City in Missouri, Moberly, and Dutch. If you don't know of Waking Up with Analogs, Ben's work, he'd just epic on Twitter on documenting hundreds, if not thousands, of 1800s newspaper articles, publishings of like the giants, the ancient Antiquitech all throughout America, and covering just epic amounts of stuff. And before we went live, you told the story of Moberly and the Crystal City that's around you. Can you tell it again, please?
Oh, certainly. Hey, you know what? This is going to be a fun little thing here. Okay, in Missouri, there's a place called Moberly, Missouri. And back in the 1800s, I don't know what year in the 1800s, but certainly it was in the 1800s, the New York Times ran a story in April of that year. It wasn't April 1st, so it wasn't technically an April Fool's joke or anything, claiming at the bottom of a coal mine in Moberly, which there are a series of coal mines around Moberly, that they were down several hundred feet in a shaft, and they broke through a wall, and they found a hidden underground city that was huge, and it was crafted, they said, for giants. And the story ran in the New York Times in April of whatever year in 1800. They then came out and retracted the story and said it was a hoax. They didn't call it an April Fool's joke because April Fool's jokes didn't exist at the time, really. So they retracted it and called it a hoax. And
just magically retracted it some way, somehow, like all of the story. Sorry, I just got to put this one part in of how it literally every story, including the Kincaid Grand Canyon pyramid complex. And this is Isis Temple Pyramid there. And this picture still has the giant cave opening in the center. It's now actually walled up. The U.S., some government agency, walled that up in the middle of these random badlands. No inner city to see there. Anywho, back to the Crystal City that's supposedly around you.
Before you continue, I'd just like to bring up the fact that what we were talking about Britain apparently being built by giants. So there is a few things that correlate with this, which are great. So when I was researching the comet in one of my videos, you might have watched it, I'm not sure, but there was some Anglo-Saxon poetry that talked. And when this comet struck, they wrote specifically, the work of giants lay in ruin. And, the people that could have rebuilt it were dead. Right. And if you look, there was a £2 coin in Britain that had written on it, standing on the shoulders of giants. You might have seen Paul Cook talking about how the cliffs of Dover themselves look like they are degraded limestone blocks that have turned into this material over time. Well, you correlate all this together. You've got Gog Magog, the last giant, when Brutus apparently came into Britain. That Britain was controlled by giants, and Gog Magog was the last one that Brutus slayed. Welsh folklore will talk about giants in Britain. And if you look up the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, you've got these huge structures that they literally call the Giant's Causeway because it's incredible. So I think this correlation, and in fact, there is an even bigger one, which you might have heard of the Bible with the Nephilim, the way that angels mated with man and created a race of giants, right? Well, what is England called? Engel land. Engel is the Saxon for angel. Angel land, land of the angels.
That is, guys, we're gonna, when we do the next live, and this is something for other people to tune into, we'll be able to show that what I found is that England itself, the UK, Great Britain, and Ireland are, well, every single continent. Paul Cook might be not. It might be Paul Cook is right. The plates have been somehow
Shout out Paul Cook. Shout out
made.
Yeah,
I heard he had some blueberry. I heard he had some blueberry. I need to meet up with him. Now I'm serious, guys. That I will show what I feel to be, and I've already showed it in the video, so it's already gotten me in big trouble. Undeniable proof that each plate now, including UK on the side, has been manufactured or made somehow cymatically. Maybe I think. I don't know how they did it, but right. that they were able to somehow raise the plates up in layers or create it somehow with geopolymer or other, and that right. Or earthquakes striking down below the tips of each one of them.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said it there, right? Plates. So if you watch cymatics, you know when they put sand on a plate attached to a speaker and they watch the way it changes. Imagine if you did that with wet cement, okay? Something that's going to move into position, and then when you leave it, it'll set, right?
Yeah.
And that happens with mud. We see an earthquake makes the mud turn to liquid, and then when the vibrations stop, it sets in position. So if you were to have a vibration under the plates that we live on, you would create a series of cymatic patterns all over that entire plate.
You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what we're finding. And there's a military base built in the middle of each one, which means somebody knows. Oh, and a Facebook data center, which we'll talk about and show at some point. Real quick, I'll wrap up the Moberly story. The Moberly thing, they were down at the bottom of this coal mine here in central Missouri, and they found this city that was built by giants. And in the story, it talks about people with elongated skulls found wrapped up, curled up in cocoon shape, or what I would imagine to be like kind of, huddled up or something like that. Anyway, my wife, doing separate research on horticulture, trying to find Missouri native plant pictures to print out for our decorations in our house, found in the Missouri Historical Society 2 weeks ago, which I'm going to show in a video. It's on her laptop now, and we will show it when we go live. There used to be painters, expert painters, that would do what were called panorama pictures, and they would paint starting at the head of the Mississippi waters all the way up north in the North United States, and ride a small raft all the way down to New Orleans and paint the entire landscape along the way. And then that would be in a huge roll that they would take around and sell people to watch roll by in what they called panorama moving pictures, but not like movies, like just this thing would scroll by basically and show you landscape pictures. Anyway, my wife found this thing 2 weeks ago where it starts here in Missouri on the Missouri River and heads north by northwest up towards the northwest United States. And as they're going at the start of the panorama, there's a cave scene that's been very detailed painted of 5 guys walking through a cave, and the cave is huge. And there's all kinds of giant crystals growing out of the sides of the cave, which we now know is Crystal City, Missouri, and the Crystal Cave that's here, which is just south and next to Moberly, Missouri, where they found the giant city underground, supposedly, but they called it a hoax. Anyway, in this painting, it's undeniable. The guys are holding lanterns.
Sorry, I was failing miserably at trying to get...
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
On there.
In the cave painting, there are elongated skull skeleton mummies painted by this artist who went into the cave system with the explorers who went, and there's a whole detailed description of what they discovered. And what they discovered were a series of mummies and they're painted as being taller than the guys. They got the English guys, they're holding lanterns. Here's the mummies next to them. Each one's got a super elongated skull, and they have to be at least 10 or 15 feet tall, guys. Each one. And it's painted out, and it's in a panorama picture that was taken all over the United States and shown as what they discovered on the voyage northwest. And it was a guy tied with Lewis and Clark who was doing the exploration. So it's official. It's not like it's just some fanciful painting. This was shown, and it might even, it's in the Missouri Museum now. And I have links to it. I will get to it. We'll show it live. But what it proves is Moberly.
Do you have any
the original story in Moberly about the elongated skulls and the tall people that they found and the crystals, because the two are right next to each other. And then that proves giant people were here. And that means we already know this. So anyway, it's pretty intense.
Like, right? Like literally there's like hundreds, thousands of giant stories, pyramid stories, burials of these elongated skulls. Like it's these reset, long lost higher civilization on like macro scale. Like the work you found, Dutch, of like literally like we got to do an in-depth one on Guangpeng Dong or whatever that one is, and like it's like just a giant pentagon, giant Starfort Island in the middle of Micronesia, Macronesia or something. It's like
yeah, on the side of on Micronesia, they named a Nan Medal was the name of the place.
Yeah. So that's like the little city that's officially like really old and like built from basalt from like the ocean up by man somehow, megalithic out of the sea, like no different than Saudi Arabia building.
Everybody, hold up, stop the train, because 1 week, I want to say it was 1 week after you made the video, you guys started talking about Nan Madol, the National Weather Service and the international weather agencies came out and suddenly named a typhoon that was going towards, it hit Japan, Typhoon Nan Madol. And they did this just a few days after you did your video on Nan Madol. Go look up the Japan Nan Madol hurricane. It just hit this past year and they named it Nan Madol.
Hey, right, yo.
So we have to have a Nan Madol episode. And Angkor Wat one, but a Nan Madol one, especially because it looks like they just recognize this little tiny Starfort area of it as being insanely old, man-made island out of the sea. Megalithic basalt created it, very ancient. But in reality, the entire massive island of it all, most of it covered by like lost ruins, but like forest now. But the entire structure is probably created artificially or some like, you know, somehow like on this mega giant scale. It's like it's insane the more you look at it. And that
I can confidently tell you and your viewers, if you go open up a copy of Google Earth or any other map and go type in Micronesia and look at it, you will see that Micronesia is a giant pentagon. It's indisputable. I had skeptics show up and say it was just natural. But then you have Nan Madol on the east side, and it's made up of hexagonal basalt, and it's in the shape of a pentagon. And it can't be, because just to the north of there, guess what we did? The United States came in and did the Bikini Atoll nuclear tests on all those other atolls all the way around Micronesia, the Marshall Islands and so forth. We nuked the shit out of, pardon my language, we nuked the hell out of all those other islands going just to the northeast of Micronesia. That's where we did all of our nuclear tests. Just by chance, right? Sorry, guys. It's just I get fired up about it because they made it.
You're repeating like acknowledging, discussing how many times they've destroyed these ancient sites that are like just next level. We can't even comprehend them, yet alone build them right now. And that it's like, oh, actually, when we nuke something, that's what we destroyed. Oh, when there's the Korean War, Vietnam War, actually they bombed Burma and like these crazy pyramids and these jars and like freaking bowls that are 10 times the size of like a house, made for giants, all sorts of crazy stuff. all over. We never see it. They just destroy it.
Russia just did
And
it. Russia just invaded. You guys have all seen the old maps. Where is Tartaria listed on most of the old maps, guys? It's north of the Black Sea. And we know what's
little
north of the Black Sea. That's where,
little
Crimea.
Tartaria starts at Crimea, essentially.
You've entered into
Lots
my
of it.
category here.
And then
This is
Luke
actually...
can
Thank you. Right. Okay. All right. Is my volume okay, by the way? Because someone commented saying it was low. And
yes, sir, it is.
right. Sweet. So yeah. So I've done quite a bit of research into the old history of Tartary and the way that it expands. So if anything, I'm probably the guy to ask about this. So what you've got, what it seems, is there's three regions. So first, in the northeast is where we were talking about yesterday. We've got the Prester John, who is seemingly a Christian. So this was a Christian nation in the northeast of Siberia-ish region above China. And they were apparently settled from 1290 AD as a Christian nation. And they were the ones who were oppressing Genghis Khan's people. So Genghis Khan rose up against Prester John, took over this whole empire, and that is how Genghis Khan first came to power. So Muscovy is a separate power that is part of this empire. Now, it seems to be interchangeable. Sometimes Muscovy takes over, sometimes Tartary takes over. We know that Tamerlane in the 13 to 1400s, so this guy was the general, so he wasn't the emperor yet, but he was the next in line. He was the general that was fighting all the battles for the Grand Sham. We know that he was attacked by Muscovy, and they attacked Astrakhan and Kazan. So we know that those places, which are now settled firmly in Russia, Kazan is Tatarstan, so you can learn about that if you want to go down there. So they've retained some of their Tartarian heritage. But the point being that Muscovy, which is what we know as Russia today, they have taken over all these lands that used to be Tartarian and have pushed them under the Russian Empire and basically said this is one thing. Whereas history will tell you that this has been controlled by Tamerlane in the 13 to 1400s, with his empire being at Samarkand, which is just a bit south of where this map's pointing. You know, you've got the Tartarians that took over the Chinese empire in 1644, just after the Qing dynasty. And again, they've been written out of history. You've got the Kazaki Tataris that apparently fought Ishmael in 700 AD, and they've been written out of history. You've got the Crimean Khanate that took place in a battle about 1739 against both the Muscovy Russians and also the Ottomans, and they've been written out of history. It's nuts. But if you do look for these things, you'll find these small Wikipedia articles. For example, you'll find the Crimean Khanate is listed as this tiny force that was in that battle that I just said, 1739, I think. And if you go into that, you realize that that was actually Little Tartary. That was the lesser Tartarians fighting during this war. So they've been written out at every level. It's not just Russia, it's global. So they have been written out of our history.
That is indisputable. It's absolutely indisputable that there is and was a global, or at least seafaring civilization that was at least modeled around Tartaria, which is on the map. And I've even shared it with my viewers, so this shouldn't be controversial for anybody to talk about. Found auction house map for, I want to say it was $84,000 sold at auction.
Right here, that is Tartaria. You see, it's from. This is the Caspian Sea, and you got northeast, what is now Siberia, and the North Siberian Arctic Ocean, and going into the Barents Sea over here. This whole area, and that this was what seems like a reprint, like basic mid 50 explanation where the coast is off and everything, but it actually has really fascinating
you know what, one thing
that
what
I'll
Dutch
let you
just said.
take over the name part here, Luke.
Right, what was that? Well, I won't get into names because I don't have the translations hear me, but something that Dutch said there about the Vikings, as in seafaring. You didn't say Vikings, but you made me think of the Vikings, right? Seafaring. We know the Vikings apparently went to America, etc., etc. Okay, what do we think of a Viking as? Just picture what you think of. Well, you think of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed giant, right? And you go, it sounds a little bit like an Aryan, doesn't it? Right. So we go back to that map we saw yesterday when we were talking about it. We saw that thing about the Danites being called the Danes of the Dark North, the Danes of the Dark North. And the Danites apparently went to Ireland. Now they're associated again with the Vikings. So what we've got to start realizing is that the Vikings, the Aryans, because think about the blue hair, blue eyes, Aryans, Tartarians, barbarians, Hungarians, Bulgarians, this is where it's coming from. There is a huge connection. This seafaring nation of the Vikings is actually the remnants of this Tartarian empire, which is also the tribes of Israel. So if we go to the Danites, they were expelled from this area in the north. The Danites were expelled and they left. And the Danites, the Danes, the Vikings, it's right there. It's literally in the name and you don't realize it. And then you go, oh wait, but the Aryans are blonde hair, blue eyes, and are supposed to be a perfect race. Oh shit, the Aryans, the barbarians, the Tartarians. And that's where it comes from. It's right under our noses this whole time.
Oh, I agree. You know, there's actually,
And that they,
believe it or not,
what
in
I
the
heard,
Bible, of all places, guys, in the Bible, there's talk about the Galatians. Do you guys know about the Galatians?
No, tell us.
Oh man. Okay.
please tell the
Paul writes a
story.
letter in the Bible to Galatia, and it's to the church at Galatia, telling them the rules and how they've either broke them or kept them. And basically, I got a wild hair up my ass and decided to go look up the history on the Galatians. And it turns out the Galatians were a red-haired people. Galatia was in Turkey. Okay. And they were a red-haired, freckled people. People who had freckles, they didn't call it freckles at that time. They call it blemished. But a red-haired, blemished people that were all in, they were tall. They were known for being extremely tall. And now get this. The Galatian people had moved down to Turkey in somewhere pre-Rome time. So this is a standard time frame, right? But pre-Rome time, the Galatians came from Ireland and settled down in the Turkey area. And the red hair thing and the tall people, and they said they were seafaring. This is now in the legend, and that they also spread out other places, which then, of course, fits with every other continent around the world.
So Turkey, this is weird because Turkey is just above Assyria, right? So if you take Assyria, which is the old name for Britain, was called Albany or Albion at one point. So that name comes from in 1650 BC, an Assyrian king decided to fucking leave Assyria and go sail somewhere else, and he went to Britain, which is why they named the place after him. But if you go into mythology, Albion was actually a giant whose corpse is Britain itself. Like he died and we're living on his back, right? So you take the two things into, with a pinch of salt and you mix them together. Perhaps, like you say, if Turkey was covered by these ginger giants, perhaps Assyria was also, and perhaps he's the person that's gone over to Britain to create this race of giants. Again, if you look at Gog Magog, who is the apparent last giant to be killed in Britain by Brutus when he arrived there. Welsh folklore will show you that Britain was previously inhabited by giants. Well, you'll see that he's depicted as a ginger, tall-haired Pictish man, Picts resembling Tartarians, but he's a giant ginger man who is killed before humans can move into Britain. So don't you think that connection between Turkey apparently being inhabited by tall ginger people, then Assyria just below Asia Minor, which was Turkey at the time, apparently has Albion who comes over with giants, and then Gog Magog, one of his descendants, is killed, and he's a tall ginger giant.
We cannot overlook that. You're on to something huge here, guys. This is all live. Just so you know, this is not scripted. So we're kind of going down a little rabbit hole here that I think needs to be go down. Check it out. Do you guys know the Uyghur conspiracy from China? The Uyghur people? You know about this?
100% improv. We are 50 minutes in.
Huh. Wow, that went by quick.
A 5 minute
So,
thing.
Wow, that went quick. God, wow.
Just a little pretext. Great. 1 hour. We're almost 1 hour in when we were supposed to do 5 minutes. 3 legends, because Bert and Ernie are famous. And then we have the unbelievably amazing, and the mainstream media tries to slander you like no other, Dutch, and it's just insane when those the clips like BBC Italian like ladies being like, oh, he gave us the warning, we were able to sleep in the cars, he saved us, and then they like literally exchange people vinifying you from the internet, cut your internet, your power, the little power to your place 112 times today. It's insane. And it's because you've discovered this code cycle.
It's been insane. The 112 power outages, I have witnesses and technicians even now who are willing to testify in court. It's crazy. I stepped all over all kinds of toes. I turned down a Halliburton sponsorship. You guys might not know about this story, but all kinds of stuff, man. All kinds of. We'll go down that road too about what I turned down and what happened to me because of it. What's in the world of geophysics and geology that's total bullshit, which is pretty much everything now that I'm finding. That's what they didn't want me to find. But no, real quick, before I forget, this red hair thing, man. Okay, the Uyghur people conspiracy, the China conspiracy. Why are they running it? Why? This is not me, guys. Just so you know, I didn't come up with this. I saw several videos on it. And it's about the heritage of the Uyghur people and that the Chinese are rounding them up for some kind of breeding project.
Uyghurs. I get what you're talking about. Sorry, yeah.
Uyghurs. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it.
You're not mispronouncing it. It's just a language difference. But I was sat here like the Ouija people, and I was like, oh, the fucking Uyghurs. Yeah, no.
Yeah, the Uyghurs. Yeah. Now, get this. They're all red hair, blue eyed.
No.
And yeah. And they all come from Turkey originally.
Right, for real. This has got to be it.
And China's got to be getting them for genetics. It's got to be they're trying to get that elongated skull.
Right. So in England, you've got Irish people. They'll it's just a bit of a stereotype, a racist stereotype that they'll be ginger in it, right? The Danites left Serbia and fucking came over to Ireland, and they're the people connected to the tribes of Israel. Do you know what I mean? They're the same Uyghurs, so of course they'd be ginger. Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's red hair, blue eye, or green eye.
Oh, and you'd be really interested in this stuff that I've got. So there's an old historian that unfortunately, he's getting on a bit now. He's in his late 80s, 90s, but he unearthed all this shit to do with King Arthur and how he went over to America and stuff. And one of his brothers is called Prince Madoc. He went over to Mobile Bay. Now, if you search up Mobile Bay, you will find a monument to Prince Madoc, but they have misdated it to 1170, but it's actually 570-ish that he should have been there. But the point being that it says that, this guy came over and he left behind with the Indians, the Welsh language. Now, if you go into the Welsh Chronicles, they depict meeting ginger Indians that could already speak Welsh.
Yes, that's here in Missouri. And those Indian people are said to be the mound builders that they supposedly had a civilization that went all the way up to the Great Lakes, they told us. But you're absolutely right. This red hair thing can't be overlooked because it would be a evidence of a global traveling all the way from central Russia or China all the way over to the United States. The only thing missing would be South America to have the red-haired people.
We know we got the mound building culture. That red-haired people. and often a second row of teeth as well, or a 6 finger or toe with these like the red-haired giant genotype general. Just gotta put
Right.
that fact
You're
out
right.
there
You know what?
adding
It's
it in.
it's really funny because I remember when I had one of my awakenings, like, so I've always been one of these people that laughs when you watch South Park. You know how there's the whole Jewish kind of laugh at the Jews kind of thing. I've always been like just laugh along with that. I've never considered that Judaism might be like the way. So when I started,
Anti-Semitism.
oh, sorry, it's the connection's gone a bit. Oh, I lost you a bit there. What did you say, bro?
Keywords get mentioned and things get shut down.
Oh shit. Oh right.
Right? Every time.
Oh right. Okay.
So yeah, 1 hour in. We got nobody has joined, not Paul, not Campbell, not Zertis. This has been excellent for so far. We got a future full plan with Paul Cook, Campbell, Zertis, Dutch, and welcome back, of course, on the 14th Valentine's Day date, where we'll be able to be pre-organized with the references to go further in depth with a lot of what we've been explaining so far. Pretty funny, Luke, Ancient Historia. You're like, Bernie, how are you up already? No, I haven't slept yet, and I am now on probably 9 hours of streaming straight. So it's like I definitely am long past my bedtime. It's noon into the next day. I did with there's just so many good things going on.
Aren't we supposed to be doing
I'm
another
gonna let
3 hours?
you guys go on. What?
I said, aren't we
We
supposed
could go
to be
on
doing
all day if we
hours?
really want to, because eventually what we're going to be doing, me and Dutch were talking ahead of time, and Dutch, do you have your Twitch on you, or can you be on your Twitch and currently log on to my Twitch, which we are also currently live on, which I should post the link in the live chat for everybody and the private chat for you, and that this is going to be a key part of integrating going forward is running Twitch streams that'll be featuring like a multicast mixture of like some of the science experiments in the corner. All right, there we go. Not open double mic. Okay, we got the Twitch. Here we go. Posting it, then closing it. But you should maybe not open it and then have that same thing happen now that I think about it, Dutch. Anyways, next time, we'll be integrating all the Twitches, and we'll be starting and keeping things running for multiple hours on Twitch ahead of time, like you already do have running on your Twitch. Or do you want to share your Twitch or show what you're doing on Twitch and how we're going to just do
Probably what I'll do is
on it all?
I'll probably be doing when you're like showing, for instance, just so people know what we're talking about. When he's doing like a live experiment that's running for 12 hours and I've got my 24-hour earthquake stream running, I want to put his live stream in the lower right-hand corner of my thing that you can click on or follow a link to, where you can click over and watch his live stream and so forth. And then when they're all doing stuff, it can appear on mine and mine can appear on theirs. And if we want to, I mean, it doesn't have to always be there, but it would just be something we can do together if we want. It's pretty cool.
Experimenting, connecting the StreamYard to the Streamlabs and running on the different Twitches, integrating them, and trying to create some sort of like original Weekend at Bernie's 48 hour where you got like 24 stream channels broadcasting 2 hours worth of stuff, and then like crypto news every on the top of the hour, the half hour, the weather, the forecasting, the cycle.
Well, I foresee that this could be used, for instance, like when an earthquake strikes and I show it live and I zoom in, like what I did in California a couple of weeks ago, and we find a star fort with a satellite array and a recycling center built inside of the star fort directly in the center. And there's been an earthquake right down below the center. And I'm showing it live. It gives, first of all, it gives like all you guys something to go look at. And it's live. You know what I mean? An earthquake is just struck below it that has caused damage in California. And you can start looking into it. That I can't go out there, and maybe you guys can't go out there, but maybe one of your viewers who lives right down the street, because it's literally a recycling center in the center there. You can like go there and drop off your trash and take a look at it and see what the deal is and measure it. Take an electromagnetic field measurement. That's something I want to send to Paul Cook. That I'll pay for it if he can't afford it or whatever. I will order him an EMF detector, a radio frequency smog detector, a Geiger counter, and all the things that he would need.
To me, I will.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, we'll get one for you too.
We're gonna be setting we're gonna set this up then on Valentine's Day. It's our date, right? You've committed, and we will have Paul, we will have Campbell, we will have Luke, and we will have.
Oh shit! Have I committed to this? Have I committed? Oh shit!
Okay. Hey, you're the stud. You're the new kid on the block. You're 28. You're pretty young. I'm like 38 and almost. I'm 38. I'm almost 40. And Dutch, you want to say your age, good sir?
I'm 47, guys. I'm 47. Right. I'm the old fart here, I guess, for now at least.
I can't see your face, but I'm not kidding, Bernie. You could have been anywhere between 25 and 35 in my head.
God bless your heart. So
maybe it's that colloidal or that gold water, the monoatomics, the fountain of youth.
I wanted to talk to you about. No, seriously, Bernie, me and you need to have a chat about this, because I want to talk about alchemy versus like drug alchemy, as in like real alchemy as opposed to mental alchemy. You know what I mean? Like, because there's two arguments.
Real, it's just you don't want to mess with the wrong spirits and like get them hooked into the wrong portal, or like alcohol being a spirit, or a psychoactive, the spirit of the plant into
it would be interesting to discuss the history of alchemy. That should be discussed. You should discuss the history of alchemy going all the way back to when it,
But one thing that gets me is that, I don't know, you might have seen, there's a channel on YouTube that's quite good that goes through the 7 stages of your alchemic magnum opus. But it's like there's a magnum opus in the terms of turning lead to gold, or there's that's the philosopher's stone in it, but there's a magnum opus in the sense of the chemical version, I've created a dust that will make me God, as opposed to I've done all this meditation and I've attained godlyhood.
I suspect this is the philosopher's stone if made out of gold.
Well, I mean, you know what? I would actually love to take that.
I do know what you're talking about too. Yeah. That's something else I do if I can get a couple of signal generators and a couple of variacs and.
Well, right, I saw you talk about
but this right here, monoatomic gold. Have you seen my lettuce plant? My 6-foot lettuce plant. So this regular, the one end of the garden, and then got weekly award with the only all those, but here's kale that's like a 2 to the lettuce plant that is as the sunflowers there. It actually got a couple grams of this full gold. Oops, I guess I should have had that on the full. Sorry. And let's
I'd be willing to do a control test for you too on my many of my viewers know,
Yeah, you can see it.
I'm
There
a
you go,
cannabis
the big
breeder.
letters,
I'd be
same
willing
height.
to test that and see how it works versus
I'm
control versus
planning-
not.
100%. This I'm planning over the next month to do 6 different seedling starts of like some lettuce, some spinach, and maybe sunflowers. Something 3 different types, 6 of each. One will be normal water. One will be this monoatomic water. One will be the oxidized diatomic water, where this stuff I believe is poisonous if you get the oxidized versions, not the monoatomic. So we're going to try it on plants, right? So this is safe testing of these different colloidal waters and products, as well as the purple gold comboed water. I can show.
Bernie, can I come to Canada? Just give me some monatomic gold. Would that be cool?
So my deal is people can send me gold and I will make it out of it on camera. I get to keep half for science experiments for that I'll also do on the camera, and the other half gets shipped to the people that provided the gold, and you will get your your monatomic.
So, guys, what we're going to need here, let me do the commercial for this, okay? What we're going to need is for you to send your gold in. We're going to need to send your gold to Ancient Historia over there.
And I guarantee I'm not a greedy dragon. Okay?
That's really cool. That's really cool that in the different stages, I'm interested about the purple one and why it's reflecting purple like that. I just, just curious, like why light wise. Oh, by the way, I want to send Bernie my lasers since they've been sitting in a thing for the last 2 years. I only use them at 4th of July. I'm going to send my lasers to Bernie. He can use them in their 40-watt lasers. He can do them and burn stuff and all kinds of stuff.
Do I not get a laser as well? I'm on the stream.
I can't ship them internationally, unfortunately. They're high-powered laser.
Wait, no, that's bullshit. That's some bullshit.
Where are you? What country are you in again?
I'm in England.
Don't you worry.
Oh, yeah, the damn Brits. You damn Brits, they won't let it in. It's high technology. Only your government gets it.
So, can you hear me decent right now?
Are you in Canada as well, Dutch?
I can send it to Canada.
Oh, you're in the US.
No, he's in the US.
Oh, yeah, I'm in the United States. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, which is like right in the middle of, kind of in the middle of the US.
Muted right.
Oh, I can hear you, Bernie. I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So we were talking earlier, Dutch, that I made some out of iron, ferrite, and neodymium material, broke it down, and that it's quite fascinating that it lost its all magnetic properties of that material. It's been stripped of its electrons completely. This was straight up made out of neodymium magnets and iron. And then there's these other chunks just randomly floating, stuck in the middle of it.
So, Bernie, there's a question I'd love to ask you when you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just in considering that magnum opus. Like, do you consider that there is an end goal where you could drink a certain powder and you just like attain some level of godliness or something?
It's called Monster Energy Drink.
No, because like that's like when you read about like Fulcanelli, like the goal of the magnum opus was the transformation of the person, you know?
Luke, I guess I'm going to have you back for the Adept Alchemy 101 stream with esoteric
we can't discuss that.
yeah, okay, the purple one here. Purple. This one is the purple one. I still have to send this back. There's 4 of these bottles that belong to Francois in Quebec that provided the gold and a bit of his father's hair that I combined with it and then turned it purple. And you can also still see the gold foil from it settling. And
that'll be like
the gold
perfectly like legit.
purple.
After that's done, that you like, I could swallow that and that'd be fine.
So let me just so that like for my viewers who watch this back,
well,
the way the way he's making this,
like, literally the different colors, it's like it can very easily be harmful on a exponential scale as opposed to helpful if it is not in that single monoatomic plasma state, but instead like the diatomic, the oxidized, the hydroxide, these chunky particles that then get stuck in your cells and create heavy metal poisoning in a very, very quick time. And that's why you hear of people that took colloidal silver or monoatomic gold or whatever, but blue. Oh, they're literally ingesting the diatomic. It will kill you. You will die. Or triatomic or other ones. And that's why the next step here that I'm going to do is use the colloidal waters. This the top water that is the dissolved water from the monoatomic water, as well as I'm going to start trying with one of my own purple ones and the blue one, the diatomic, on agriculture, on seeds, and also have it with normal tap water and distilled water as another control, 2 controls with it, and do some real science, because that's the name of the series that we do, is actual real science, and we're going to keep the real science going.
This is awesome to see. I just want to, again, for any of my viewers who watch this back, he's not just dumping powders in there and like letting them settle. The way he's making this is he's taking pure gold, 24 karat gold, and making it into basically electrodes, a cathode and an anode. They pass electricity through, and he's putting low amount of electricity. I mean, this could be done. Yeah, don't do this at home, kids. All right, but he's putting electricity through the piece of gold, which is in the liquid. The liquid can be different kinds of liquid, anything from salt water to other things mixed into the water. And what happens is the electricity comes out. Yeah, salt water is what he's using. And the electricity comes out of the gold and it strips off, like scuffing your feet across the carpet, that the electricity is scuffing its feet across the metal and it's going into the water and it's taking off ions of the metal and stripping it off, basically, is what he's doing, using electricity. And then it forms into the water. It's amazing. It's awesome. And people said that this had no medical properties, no possible use. And instead, it actually has a use. And then he's finding that there's uses for it, including on plants.
Exactly. So we're going to take this plant growing to the next level.
And just to be 100% clear, you can turn that gold, monatomic gold, into powder. Yeah?
Yeah, the straight, this gold, this 10 gram, it was a full 10 gram. I had 2 full 10 gram, 24 karat bar, and used as an anode and cathode. And this is what's left of the 2 electrodes after I used them both as anodes. First anode and cathode, and then original gram dissolved that then switched that was the cathode. That's why it got the black nano coating on half of it, because it was first used as a cathode, and then when I used it as an anode, another 4 grams of this 10-gram pure 24 karat was last turned into this one right here. That is a few grams of the gold straight into monatomics.
I remember seeing
Or you can watch my full 2-hour documentary with Paul Cook and Autodidactic that I did multi-stream with them. How to make your own colloidal silver. You can pure 1.9 your country's minted silver 1 ounce coins, and right how it'll, what they say is tarnish is actually nano coating, nano plating, and breaking down and creating these lost ancient high technologies that 400, 500, 5,000-year-old scriptures, histories, legends all talk of, whether demigods or alchemists past or Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton is where I got the vast majority of my information from.
Right, just to be clear, you have ingested some this powder, right? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
yes,
just
sir.
to be clear, you have ingested some of this powder, right?
Yeah, a couple of times I've ingested a couple grams of the pure gold, trying it out, and it gave me instantly hyper increased cognitive abilities for about 48 hours of like pictographic memory of like being a very young child that I hadn't remembered in like 20 years.
Wow.
Stayed up for like 2 days without needing to eat, like with just energetic or didn't need to sleep, and then just like crashed afterwards for like a day with a really nice sleep. It fades a little bit, but pretty fantastic. Oil waters. I started out the first 4 years drinking this colloidal water was just silver, copper, and zinc equal mixture, where I'd be making a zinc anode, zinc cathode, making 25 zinc, 25 with copper as the 2 electrodes, 25 with silver as the 2 electrodes, and sorry, 33 and maybe 3% mixed in that I do now. To also have the gold in that water for the last 7 years total that I've drinking stuff. And, I've been pretty healthy and sick whatsoever, and seems to work pretty good overall. That said, if you ingest or use anything atomic, you might. It can be very dangerous. It is very what you're doing. Don't try it if you don't know what you're doing, and don't. It's a brand new, lost, ancient, high nanotech, superconduct tech, quantum tech, maybe quantum matter. There's so much. Anywho, back to you two. Any questions?
Oh, I'm mind blown. Just seeing all this, guys, just so, when you're talking about alchemy, I mean, there's different levels of it, of course. And when we get into the ancient, obvious, there was some kind of ancient civilization that had high advanced electrical technology, because how are you going to create monoatomic gold without without the passing of a current through it. So this gets into something I found, which we'll show it as some other time. It's going to blow everybody's mind, which is the famous chi-rho symbol. You guys ever seen this? You know what a px symbol is? It's like, it looks like a p with an x below it, and Christians use it. The Catholic Church uses it. It's called the chi-rho symbol. You know what this is? It's a p and an x overlaid on top of each other. It's also called the Lamb's Pascal or whatever. And it's a P and an X, and the P and the X are overlaid on top of each other. And then it has an alpha and an omega on either side of the P and the X. Okay, alpha and omega. And what I found, and this is, I think, indisputable at this point, if you know how an LED works, you have at the top of the LED, you have what's called the anvil. And at the top of the anvil, they place a little speck of substance, different substances, sometimes gallium, sometimes other things, that glows when electricity passes through it. And that's how we have all our LEDs. Okay. And long story short, the Christian symbol for the chi-rho is a diagram for an LED. Exactly. You can overlay them. And where it says alpha and omega, that's where you would have an inflowing current and an outflowing current. And that the alpha and the omega on the chi-rho symbol is just nothing more than a diagram for creating an LED. And then on the top of what's called the anvil it's shaped exactly, it's shaped exactly like a diagram for an LED, the Christian symbol for the chi-rho, which is coded electricity in the Bible.
Right, which is interesting because the red bricks,
right, like
such a current that LED lighting would be available.
I think that they may have had a geopolymer that lit up, guys. I think that they may have had a layer.
Is well done.
Outside in current red bricks already provide some form of a low-level electronic current that would
iron. Yeah, the iron in it. So the red and the iron. The red is the iron.
Yeah, they've essentially now, depending on it, and so, like, what you just described is exactly the alchemy that I've been learning, and that these are
crap!
Like
there it is.
And electrical engineering, and it's explaining it all. And I'm not going to go deep into all of the symbols explanations and how much we've actually decided of it, and that this is ridiculously high-tech like code of the universe, these geometric codes and lost pictographic higher language and all of that, and that you're bang on with what you're talking about in the Bible and that LED circuit, and that on the 14th, on our Valentine's multi-stream date, we will have those actual references together for it. And you have the pure, full chemical pictographic language representation of each element of the periodic table, which it's mind-boggling how advanced this language is and how often it's used throughout the beginning of civilizations to the occult, hidden, esoteric that still use them, and also use them in their Holly weirds and the regular. Anywho, enough of that tangent.
I dropped a link into our personal chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Chemical symbols, this full thing another time. Okay. Yes.
If you get them, there's one for the chi-rho symbol,
or the
and both of them. One is the Christian symbol for the chi-rho, and the other is the LED diagram. Just if you want to see it for your own personal reference.
Sorry,
but if
Stellium, I didn't know how long you were there. Welcome, Mike. Mike.
No, it was fun listening.
Your volume's a little low. Dutch, do you know
volume's
Stellium 7 and Luke meet Stellium 7?
I have not met. I've never met Stellium 7 before. I've never talked to you in chat before or anything. So it's good to meet you.
Pleasure to
I've
meet
never
you
seen
too.
his work on like the Titans, and he's also like mega terraforming.
Yes. I've seen at
anomalies.
least 4 or 5 videos at least I've seen. Yeah.
Of mine.
Very nice. So you
Yes.
are a little bit familiar. Perfect.
I've seen a few of yours as well, and I love what I've seen.
Any questions?
And Luke, you're new to me, but I was listening to you earlier, and you sound like a really bright guy. I'm looking forward to checking out your channel as well.
Oh, thank you very much, bro. I haven't seen any of your stuff, but I'll have to catch up as soon as I can.
We've all got homework to do.
Yeah.
Stellium
Yeah.
is also in the WhatsApp chat, and Dutch, when this is over, if you want to join in, I'm sure that you'd be more than welcome. I'll send you the it's alternative history content creator WhatsApp chat group, and there's quite a few different YouTube channel creators in there, and that we'd love to have you. And Luke, the most recent addition, and that's where he got the link to join when I posted it. And yeah, Stellium now is here too. Good day, sir.
Fun to be here. I just when I first popped in, you guys were talking about plasma and Nephilim and giants, and I was like, this is right up my alley. So I wanted to just pop in and say hello. At one point, Dutch, you were talking about plasma.
Absolutely.
You were talking about plasma and the heat that it can, arrive at, and I just wonder if you've gone into petrification at all and know anything about that sort of thing, like instant petrification or rapid petrification.
Oh, that's very interesting. That ties in with something I saw a long time ago by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden talking about this very topic and the use of, well, this is very interesting. The use of scalar to reduce and reverse flows of electromagnetic energy down to 0 and beyond, to make things disappear and to make things stand still. Well, I mean, if you are you referring to petrification as in cold temperatures?
As in things turning to stone that started off, as flesh or organic material.
Okay, because this ties in exactly with what Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden was talking about, which is how to stop and basically how to stop atoms from moving. And he proposed that you could turn something to stone using radio waves. And then this kind of bred a conspiracy, actually, which I want to call it a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, about the trolls and the sunlight. When the sunlight hits the trolls, that it's really the photons that are hitting, and that it's a scalar. And that Thomas Bearden said that where two beams cross, I was talking about this with Bernie before we got on, about where the two beams cross, that's the area where the interaction happens at a distance.
Yeah.
It's called a scalar.
And we need Jeremiah for this one.
Would this be
and
like a
Jeremiah appear, and I will send you the link.
Would this be like a Caesar technology?
Yeah, the Caesar would be the sound. That would be a sound of it instead of the light aspect of it. It could be once you organize those scalar waves into a beam scalar.
I think about like at CERN, for instance, right? They're doing this scalar Higgs boson experiments where they're crossing the beams, right? And what are they doing? They're firing monoatomic particles, dude. Did you know that? They're taking monoatomic particles, and that's what they're shooting. They're shooting little particles of iron and little particles of this and that and annihilating them. But to bring them up to speed, they're using high power microwaves. And they have these banks of klystrons that are down in the base of CERN that go on for like a mile or something. And they have to ride an electric scooter to even service these things. And a klystron is what powers the NEXRAD radar to look at the weather A klystron takes a little bit of energy, like a little bit of power, and it zaps it up into a lot of power, basically. Well, it uses a magnetron and powerful magnets to zap up electricity itself, use it like a microwave. It microwaves electricity, basically. Anyway, they have these things hooked up in a huge row, and they take these little monoatomic particles, they strip just the same way that you do using electricity and electrodes. They strip the monoatomic particles. They have a company that does it and provides pure monoatomic particles that they shoot using the microwaves. And they have a whole vat of it that they shoot the microwave beam through. It strips some of the particles with it and takes it in the beam. And then they take it through CERN, and they take another beam and do the same thing and take another particle of the same thing, or sometimes other things, and they shoot them into each other. And where they collide, where they cross the beams, that's the scalar. And where the collision happens, they annihilate each other, but they're finding that it creates other things. And so it can create other particles that are unknown. It can annihilate them and go out into nothing. They collect the energy, and God knows what happens. It goes down to the core of the Earth or out wherever. But getting back to the petrification, it's possible that you could possibly reverse the flow of, yes, that you could do it with radio waves, and that it could happen, and petrification could happen instantly and turn into stone, yes. And that everything in your body that was somehow some kind of calcified thing or another, any kind of mineral in your body, would instantly petrify and spread.
Wow.
Yes, it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I don't think, I've never seen it done, but I think it's theoretically possible for sure.
Well, I thought of about 5 different things while you were talking. I was thinking of
exactly. I love that. Like,
and I was thinking, of. Go ahead.
We'll digest that, and there's a lot of us uber nerds that are going to be appreciating that. So now I'm going to let you read.
You're familiar with that, right, Dutch? The star in a jar technology.
Yeah, we were discussing a little bit of it.
Yes, we were actually talking about it right before Ancient Historia came in. Yeah, there it is.
Gotcha.
I'm very aware of it. It's intriguing beyond belief that it's taking low voltage to do that.
Yeah, I thought they were using high power. Wow. Is that something you did, Bernie?
This one was Jeremiah.
Is that
JP
your experiment?
reproduced this. This was Jeremiah's. Okay. I want to reproduce this one. I'll reuse it. I just need a couple of variacs and the signal generator to be able to control the energy waves going in. Jeremiah and this one considered the capacitor in the top of the capacitor banks there to go, and it was doing this basic atomic hydrogen first reaction here, where it looks like it's producing more steam, especially out of heat potential energy as well in this electrolysis. Heat and a lot of hydrogen, or HHO, Brown's gas, H4, who knows what it is that needs to be. We're going to start collecting it when it's in this stage. It's a huge part of the future hydrogen gas, but literally small amounts of electricity will turn your water into the fuel of, it's like the super fuel, hydrogen. It's crazy. Once you start to, and with this state, and it goes to the bright white, and then it'll cross over to blue purple. It actually, but you need a bit higher, sustained higher voltage in it to get to about, I think, almost boiling point in the plasma as well, plasma arc in it. Maybe even. So
is that just monatomics and then some electrodes, or how is that being created?
Yeah, it's electrodes going, and then it's an arc created between it, and then the gas, the atomic hydrogen coming off of the cathode anode from the water splitting into oxygen and hydrogen. It's atomic hydrogen isotopes that's being produced the most of when it's in this harmonic state, and then you start getting these reactions of like more heat out of just such a small amount of energy, plus the gas that you can then combust for even more energy out of it. So it's multiple over unities, over efficiencies out of this, which is just plain water. And
so I wonder if this is similar to what the sun is doing.
Now go into this blue
noble gases in the
that
atmosphere.
One, it's turning the two hydrogens into actual transmutation into helium, and actually fusing the two tiny little nuclear hydrogen atoms into one new helium atom, and that did fully replicate it from this original recording of a video of a guy I found doing it and explaining it 10 years ago. Jeremiah just did it this past year. We're going to both get the equipment to do it sustainedly so then we can collect and harvest what we suspect and what is supposed to be this hydrogen, whatever, or sorry, heliums, whatever helium isotopes that it'll be producing, and then get them tested to get and verified. If it's both verified, both helium, then that is as nuclear cold fusion that you could possibly hope for as evidence and breakthrough. So.
Wow, I was thinking of, when you were describing that, I was thinking of the sun's effect on the noble gases, as it's swinging around. Have you seen that video by Dan Dimension where he's showing as the sun is approaching, you have daylight and then you have sunlight, and they're two different kinds of light, and that it's, as the sun is coming, it's actually creating a electro, stimulation of the noble gases. I don't know if it's the same kind of a phenomenon or not, but that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Caesar,
gas.
You were talking
ionized gas is a plasma. Sorry,
Dutch. You were talking about the scalar waves. Is that like, I've seen videos of water droplets just being levitated, and it's kind of like in between the point where the waves are meeting, and they can actually change the position and rotate them and do all kinds of things with them.
It's very, very interesting on the scalar aspect of this, because it was denied for a long time that it even existed, and then all of a sudden CERN came out with the scalar Higgs boson, where they're crossing the beams, and they're high power. Of course, they're extremely high power, but the same thing, like CERN is using banks of klystrons to power CERN's microwave beams, okay, like a whole row of them. But our NEXRAD radar across the whole country, for instance, every NEXRAD, which is in the United States, there's like 2 or 3 per state, it's the weather radar. It's powered by the same klystrons, exactly, made by the same company even. And we'll get to that spiral thing in a minute, because the sun is supposedly moving through space-time. And guess what? We don't go around the sun at all, according to science. According to the scientists, we are all trailing behind one side of the sun, which is why we only see one side of the sun ever, supposedly, because the SDO is parked around the Earth, supposedly, and it's looking at the sun. Guess what? We never go around the other side of the sun. We always stay on one side of the sun as we move through space-time in this supposed heliocentric model that you're looking at here, which I say supposed because it's still a theory. And so, long story short, though, this scalar thing, it can happen naturally. It can happen, I think it's happening in the core of the Earth, that there's maybe possibly 2 opposing forces, one between the sun and one between the core of the Earth.
Sun.
And that where the beams overcross in scalar and at CERN, that's where the collision happens. But the NEXRAD radar...
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Are you saying that we're tidally locked with the sun?
Well, there's some evidence to show that there's a connection between.
I got a true story I have to tell you guys first that you're gonna find this fascinating. True story. It was when I think it's. Oh God, was it? Nepal. The Nepal earthquake happened, and supposedly it's like on the opposite side of where CERN is, and I think that's on a sphere model. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And at the time that this happened, Nassim Haramein was in Calgary and doing a lecture at the University of Calgary, and I went and talked to him there, and we discussed this, and he was super stoked that I was actually also aware of this fact, and that he says that it has to do with pretty much exactly what you've been talking about. and monitoring and
the CERN thing, the CERN
together.
antipode, the
It's pretty
opposite
crazy.
side of the planet. Now here's the weird thing about the Nepal quake and how CERN ties in with the Nepal quake and the Japan mega quake and several other large earthquakes. My buddy Tattoo, who's a guy from here in United States, and I several years ago decided to look up just to find out when CERN was bringing their beams in. They have to power it up. It's not like they just turn it on. They bring the beams into what's called alignment first, where they collide the particles. But first, what they do is they do several what are called beam dumps. So they take all the microwave power, which they're telling us it's like more than trillions. It's picowatts or something, picovolts. They take it and they dump it into a room down in the basement of CERN, really, and it's filled with concrete blocks that catch the microwave. And then it converts, Mother Nature converts it into DC energy that goes down in the core of the Earth. Anyway, that every single large earthquake we've had for the last since CERN is built, they've been bringing the beams into alignment and doing beam drops. And then the day after the big earthquake hits, they have a problem at CERN that causes a shutdown. And the last one they blamed on, well, a huge earthquake hit. The one after Nepal, they shut down CERN the next day and blamed it on a weasel. They said a weasel got into the power supply of CERN. As if CERN has some kind of freaking computer power supply that you're sitting there like that a weasel could get into and it would short out or something. CERN's like, it's massive. You have to understand that thing's miles and miles wide. It's got banks of klystrons. You have to ride a scooter along.
It was a weasel. Oh, no.
Yeah, the weasel, buddy. Yeah, the buddy. And they blamed it on the weasel. And meanwhile, it was like the third time that a huge, massive earthquake. Now, the antipode for CERN, the opposite side of the planet, is just north of New Zealand. So the physical opposite side of the planet, if you were to stick your head supposedly through the planet and look through from one side of CERN to the other, it would bring you out just north of New Zealand, where all the deep earthquakes keep happening. That you see on the screen here right now, they explain those earthquakes that are raised high off the globe over in the West Pacific, not below South America, but on the other side. All those deep earthquakes there are down below the pinnacle tip of what is a giant star fort that makes up all of Australia. And I'll stake my whole professional, I'm not a professional, but I'll stake my whole YouTube channel career on this. Every single continent that I've looked at, and I showed this in a video already, but I'll show it in 2 weeks when we go live, when I have a screen cap and my video camera on, that every single continent, guys, Paul Cook is right. They've been crafted or made somehow. I propose that they were made cymatically somehow with very low frequency. I'll show it. I can prove this. I've measured each one.
You're talking about that with the plates that we were saying about before, right?
Yes. And there's earthquakes down below the tip of each one of these. And there's a military base built in the middle of each one.
Though, right? You're right. One thing that people don't take into account with this is that it wouldn't necessarily need somebody to intervene, because when we have an earthquake, we see mud turn to, to slush and behave in that manner. So you don't need to dump stuff on it. You've already got the mud there. You just need to vibrate the plate in the correct manner, and the mud will form into the shape you need it to.
I propose that the mud flood that we all think about, we all have evidence of showing sunken buildings, is exactly that. Sunken buildings that where mud came. If you guys watch the videos of liquefaction in Japan in 2011 from the megaquake, you will see an apartment complex video that pops up of an apartment complex where mud is rising up around a whole base of it. And what happens is the water table that's down below 100 feet, 200 feet, sometimes 500 or 800 feet, it comes up through the dirt and liquefies everything, and everything instantly sinks, or it comes up really. So
liquefaction, you're saying
VLF, very low frequency vibration.
You know what? Right.
Right, like it makes sense to San Andreas.
Well,
sorry,
one thing
there
is a star fort built on the New Madrid seismic zone.
Right.
Did you know this? There is a giant star fort.
Churches, right? They're shaped like boats, and the bottom of a church is called the nave. So if you imagine a church not as a church but as an ark, right, where people go, so when the mud turns to water, your building is shaped like a boat. Do you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So you will flow. So if you imagine a normal square building getting hit by mud is instantly blasted to pieces, whereas if you're in a building that's shaped like a boat, the mud will flow around you.
It'll sink your foot.
There is a cymatic shape,
but
a certain frequency that makes the star fort shape.
The sinking, that makes a lot of sense.
I have a question for Dutch related to something you were talking about earlier, Luke, with regards to Gog and Magog, and you were talking about a giant being that laid down and became the UK or became part of the UK. I just wonder, because Dutch, you were talking about these plates being formed through some kind of sound waves. Is there anything in your thinking that also accounts or allows for the possibility of titanic beings that could also be forming these continental structures?
I have a long answer. Well, a short answer first. Yes. But a long answer to explain it. This goes back to ancient legend. This goes back to the legend of the Titans, how I found out about Tartaria, actually, which I was telling Bernard about before we got on. And I was doing a research on the Greek mythology and particular on time travel, actually. Okay. I'm doing some legwork research on my time travel theory that I came up with and the equation to solve it. And we'll get into that some other point. I know it sounds preposterous, whatever. I went to go look up the history of time.
To this crowd, few things.
Tell us about
right. I finally found my calling, right? Like, here we are.
You will tell us about time.
Yeah. Let me just.
Hey, his short answer was yes. Now let him travel through time and explain how.
Right, here we go. All right, everybody, get in your DeLorean here. Okay.
Made up part of.
I drive a DeLorean Lamborghini.
Let's hear it. Let's see how the giants were mountains.
So this legend of the Titans goes back, and there's the Greek legend where Kronos was the original god or whatever, and Kronos was creating what they called abomination creatures that were huge. Okay, this is the Greek legend, and they created these 50-handed creatures called heptationaires or something. I can't remember the name of it. It starts with an H. Okay, it's definitely an H word. Klatu Verata Nictu. Okay. So the 50-handed ones were these giant creatures that could toss mountains, according to the Greek legend. And they moved whole continents, these 50-handed creatures. And the Titans, not the giants, the Titans were different than the giants. The Titans were huge. They were what you're talking about.
A fractal level up.
Right. They are huge. They are what giants would consider to be giants, the Titans. All right. So they're hundreds, if not thousands of feet tall.
Would be the ones that laid upon the turtle's back.
Totally.
Played upon the what? I missed the last part of what you
ranges.
Said. Well, in the Greek
you guys
myth, you've
seen
got
the work
the
of
myth.
Michael Tellinger, the guy that thinks that he's found like hearts belonging to giants that have been, fossilized.
Well, the giants, according to Greek legend, got tossed down by Zeus. Zeus, using electricity, came in and defeated the Titans and the hectitionaires, which were tossing mountains, and tossed them down to a place called Tartarus.
Yeah, Tartarus. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? Right. When you say about giants, sorry to interrupt, but we know that, like you say, Gog Magog from Britain was called Gog Magog. We know that there is a Gog and a Magog in northeast Siberia, where Tartaria was. You're telling me that the giants were cast into Tartarus. The giants were cast into Tartaria.
Correct. Yeah. Totally. I mean, that's exactly what it is. They weren't tossed down below hell. Hell according to the Greek legend, that Tartarus is what they call it. Tartarus was as far below hell as heaven is above earth. That's what their description of it was. Now, they considered hell to be an outlier area where they would toss all the dead bodies on the edge of the civilization. So they would take all the dead bodies and stuff, toss them, a lot of them, over on the edge, and they'd build all their stuff over on the edge of whatever they considered to be the edge of their civilization, right? So if you're going to go beyond hell, you're going to go beyond the edge of where you're normally burying everybody. That's where they toss them, right? And so anyway, that's where it came in on this Titan thing, where I came in on it. And then I'm just going to say it, Paul Cook is right. And what I'm finding is that the plates themselves have been crafted cymatically somehow, or built. And if they were built, then they were built by huge creatures that were thousands of feet tall, because they had to be able to wade through the ocean, or if there was no ocean here. Now, I found something that you're going to be mind blown about, Stellium. I found that there is a spacing measuring earthquakes. This is how I found this. Starting at Easter Island at Rapa Nui, where the giant heads are, going from Easter Island to the west, every island is 1,400 miles spaced apart perfectly. I measured it live on my stream to show all my viewers. I couldn't believe it. It starts over at Ascension Island over in the Atlantic, and it goes 1,400 miles exactly from Ascension Island to South America. And then South America, we have all the pyramids and stuff across South America. And then picking up at Easter Island, 1,400, 1,400, 1,400, 1,400, 1,400 miles exactly, all the way over to the Micronesia star fort that we were talking about. And Micronesia is a giant star fort. And they're 1,400 miles spaced apart perfectly. It cannot be natural. There's no way.
You know what, right?
It's
This is one of the things
impossible,
that
right? Like,
I've been going over. You know, like we talked about it before the stream, obviously, about certain people that were attacking us, attacking you guys in the sense of what Star Force were for. And it doesn't make sense. So you guys weren't here, for everyone watching, but we were talking about how a certain person described how when infantry are coming against these star forts, certain angles provide these angles you didn't have before. But you will literally see on Wikipedia or whatever you search on that bastion forts, star forts were created in a response to cannons, not infantry. It was never about infantry. And here's the stupidest point about this. They never bring in. They go, oh, look at this angle. These things were surrounded by water. People with guns couldn't go jumping into water. They'd have to be wading above. They get shot before they even got to the wall. Right? So this idea that these angles were necessary when you're surrounded by a lake is nonsense. It really is, because you've already got a lake in front of you. So the point being, you would sit on the outside of the lake with your cannons and you'd shoot at the walls. You would not jump into the water like, let's go get them, lads, because that's going to get you shot. So it doesn't matter about the angles, because there's a fucking lake in front of you. Boom.
I fully agree, and there's so much more, and it's like, it's not just like a lake, it's like there's the lake and then there's the maze of actual leveled what is the word, canals connecting from it, and it seems like the water is like underground aquifer pumped in, so it would have had to be terraformed from the beginning, from like
exactly
how the Nazca are from the, and all these actual ancient ones that actually are, and it's once again,
and as well, right? You've got to remember,
right, and,
right? You've got to remember that when castles were originally built, it was, the point was that the king lived in the castle. He didn't live in the city and go to the castle. He lived in the castle. So this is where people get a mistake. Imagine you've got a big city. We just make up a city, San Francisco, and you've got one fort in San Francisco. What's the objective of the fort? It's to defend San Francisco. So if you moved all your soldiers into this tiny fort and said, we're defending San Francisco, all the enemy can just move into San Francisco and aim their guns at the door to the fort and say, wait till you run out of food.
We can debunk the cannon claim. We can fully debunk it.
AKA a siege.
No, literally, because this is the point, right? If you can defend a tiny point, and they go, "Oh, look how you can't get into this tiny fort." Okay, you sit in your fort. I'll go sit in your city. This is my city now. When you want to come out the fort, we'll shoot you to death.
I just posted a video in our personal chat here. You guys are welcome to go check it out, and we'll show it when we do our live in a couple of weeks.
Right now, brother.
At 38 minutes into that video, I show, and I've talked about this before, we can debunk the cannon claim and the bastion fort claim. These star forts that I'm finding are 300 miles long, guys. Exactly 300. And they're huge.
On the left.
Oh, yeah. You might hear my voice. You might need to.
And on the right side, we line.
If you, I don't know if you mute it or something.
Back down here.
300-mile-long star forts. That's a record for me. And I know I've got
up
one
here
of
in
my
the
best
pinnacle tip, we
buddies
don't have a military
more than anybody.
Facebook data center.
I think it's playing the audio from my video, maybe, or something.
The Facebook data
center.
In the middle of it. So, now why am I taking the time to show this to you? The earthquake is between the two. The swarm outbreak, the outbreak that I'm showing you. It can't be changed. Look, we're getting too many of these outbreaks on the sides and the tips of these giant star fort shapes. And why?
If you rewind it to 38 minutes, that's where I start showing it, and the first one is the most unmistakable one. It's got Area 51 on one side, and it's got 29 palms military. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. But anyway, this 300-mile long star fort thing, it's indisputable that it's there. I've measured it, and they've built a military base in the middle pinnacle tip of each one of them, guys. Each one of them. There's 3 of them. There's a military base in the middle pinnacle tip, and they're storing nuclear at each one. Now, Facebook has built its data center in the right-hand one over in Washington on the right-hand side. But the one on the left-hand side, I trace my mouse out around it and so forth, right at about, I want to say there it is. There it is. Okay. It's on the screen right now. It's an unmistakable 300-mile long star fort shape. Do you see it? You guys see this thing? Do you see what I'm talking about? I trace it out with my mouth.
That's just defense, bro. That's just the defense. It's a military fortress. 100%. Stop asking questions.
Now, this is all of Nevada and California. That's the San Andreas that it points to.
300 miles for finding them.
No. That's just military, bro. Stop asking questions.
Yeah, it's on major faults you're finding.
Yeah, the pinnacle tip of that one points to the very tip of the San Andreas. And that's also where Vandenberg Air Force Base and we're doing our launches from. Now, the one I've got my mouse over now, I zoom in on the pinnacle tip, and there's Facebook Data Center built in the pinnacle tip of it.
Oh, no, you must be mistaken, man. This is just for defense.
Each one worldwide on the back right-hand side has a giant crater. Giant. You see the giant crater on the one over on the right-hand side,
defense,
right?
Bro. Just military
Each
defense.
one has a crater on the back side worldwide that I'm looking at. So the ones I'm finding that are 300 miles long, there's one up in Alaska. Guess what's in the middle of it? A U.S. Air Force Base. In the exact middle, right at the eye of it. The military has to know.
Just defense, bro.
And Facebook, Zucky has to know, or his architect has to know.
Look, wait. This was just to stop cannon fire, all right? Stop your conspiracy theories. This is
right. Cannons, cannons. The cannon's the size of Manhattan.
Exactly, bro. Right. Cannons can come from any direction. You need to be ready with a star fort the size of the world. No, but this is the thing, right? If you go to starforts.com, which is one of the series I'm doing at the moment, where we go through just that main one, because I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm going through it as much as anybody else. And as you go through it, you can see how they stood here and they shot here. But usually what you find with even the smallest structures is there's more to the structure buried. And that's when you start to blow it out the water. You know, there's always more of the structure buried.
So the question is, these must have been, a fractal level before the current star forts, right? 300 miles. I mean, if we look at the star citadels, all of the old world cities are all star forts. They've got the big shape, and then they've got the satellite forts and everything, and they've got massive cities in the center. But 300 miles that's a whole other ballgame.
Well, interestingly,
Titanic.
if you look
Titanic,
at,
star
I
forts.
was looking at a map of Moscow from, it's from Adam O'Leary's book when he did a trip from Germany through Muscovy to Persia for a silk trade thing. So like he went to Muscovy and there's a map there, and only the south side of Muscovy is like bastion forted, which I found really interesting, because yeah, you could say they're defending from the south, but are you trying to suggest that an army would not just move around the bastions and attack from the other side? You imagine you're walking with your army and you see the bastions and you go, oh shit, fellas, we got to attack the bastions, and it's like, oh, there's no bastions on that side. Well, no, we have to attack these bastions. They're in our way.
Yeah, but I mean, just the prevalence of them alone defeats the mainstream narrative, because the Wikipedia page has got like a couple few hundred of them at most, and they're on every continent. There's literally, probably 10,000 that 13th Monkey is mapped out by now, and some are buried underground. And I mean, there's just so many things that don't fit at all with the mainstream narrative. I wanted to go back briefly to the Titan thing, because I was just thinking, you were talking, Dutch, about the Greek myths, and in addition to what you were talking about is also the whole battle between the Leviathan and the Behemoth, which I can't remember whether it was Plato or it was another Greek writer that talked about that battle taking place in North Africa, and that ties into Mud Fossil University's favorite topic, which is the big dragon. Have you looked at that thing much?
Well, sorry to interject, but one thing I was going to say: have you ever read Fomenko's work that attributes Plato to being Plethos from the 14th century? No, well, I will send you that book, like just to read into. Basically, he goes into how Plato had, Aristotle as his teacher, who he disagreed with. There was these two different methods of viewing the world. Well, Plato had exactly the same theories, and it's basically like a carbon copy of this character through history. So I'll send you that book to read through, because it does throw up the notion that these events have happened like a lot more recent than we think.
Right.
And then there's, of course,
talks about the 1,000 years that's been interjected into historical timeline.
It's more than 1,000 years. It's a mixture. So one of them is 1,800 years, another one is 500 odd years, and another is 333 years. So they've applied different ages in different places. So it's not one conglomerate. You can add 1,000 years to any date. It's a multitude of different changes that have been applied to different sections of history. But if you look at Canaanite or Canaanite religion, they view the Leviathan and the Behemoth working together to create life. So Leviathan is the force of almost the black hole, the constant consumption, and the Behemoth is supplying the land, and it's this mixture of forces. So the Leviathan in Canaanite is actually a guy called Prince Yam, and he's a person as well as a beast. And that translates over to Poseidon in the Greek religions, and Enki in Sumerian, and even as to Jesus in the fish god.
Ooh, you just mentioned something that just strikes home, which is the fish people, which the Nomos from North Africa, and Nebuchadnezzar, however you want to say it, Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
And him being the original quote unquote Aryan, which he's the founder of Iran. Iran being, I had a Iranian friend, friend of the family. He was like 50 years old and came over here when the revolution happened. his name we call him Matey, but this guy told me the history of Iran, and he said, did you know that we are a nation of Aryans? We come from the water. Our eyes are blue, he tells me.
Right.
And so then you have Nebuchadnezzar, and he is in all these old carvings of him. He's wearing the fish garb. He's dressed as a fish person, and he claimed original. He claimed to be from the ocean or from the sea, going back to Noah and all this other crap. But long story short, with the Pope now wears the fish hat. Of course, the symbol of the Christian is the fish, and the fish ties in with
the age of Pisces.
Right. And that this all ties together with an ancient mystery religion that goes back a long way, long before. This goes back to the fallen angel, Nephilim, whatever you want to call them, the long skulls, as we call them here in Missouri.
We went over this yesterday. So the Nephilim, there's a group of the tribes of Israel called the Nephilites. Okay. And they seemingly were excluded with the Danites. But the point is, when you think of Nephilim, the giants, the cross between angels and man, Nephilites, the Tartarians, you know these.
Right. It's all right there, and it's all in the same region too, including the fish people.
Aryans as well, right? What you said about Aryans
Venetians,
Barbarians. Tartarians,
well, so exactly what I was going to say.
Aryans.
So you've got the Aryans in Iran, right? And they are Islam, right? So this is where we've been kind of fooled a bit. And I think David Ewing Jr. is kind of correct with this, is that Islam hasn't come from the Middle East. Islam's actually come from Europe. So if you look at that, in the official history, well, technically not,
I guess
but there
like
was Vandals.
The Greekish Spain area, there is that documentation of it. I don't want to we have to be very careful on not crossing specific belief boundaries of
what I'll say is that
but we're just spitballing ideas here and stuff. We're not saying
So what I will say is that there's the reports in the old histories of Vandals. So Vandals and Goths, they crossed over from Germany through France. They had some battles with the Romans and with King Arthur of Britain, and they crossed over from the Pillars of Hercules into the north of Africa. So we know that the Roman Empire used to control the north of Africa, and that would have been included in the religions of the Roman Empire. So when the Roman Empire fell in about 400 AD, they lost control of the north of Africa. So these Vandals... Go on, sorry.
Or whatever was the ruling sea trading, seafaring power of that time. And the point is that throughout all of history and leading up to the time of Columbus, and Columbus supposedly discovering America and opening it up for the quote unquote Christian or Catholic Jesuit official ownership and colonialism of North and South America. Before that, it was Templars that were over here doing the trade, but secretly, but also established there as one group minority, but seafaring economy, as well as every other group, whether it was the Tartarian Chinese, because the Chinese direct area was the Chinese Tartar, the inner walls of the Forbidden City in Beijing, Peking. At the time, the Beijing was called Peking, and the sacred city, it was the walls of Tartar. And that it's well established that from the 500s, supposedly 500 years ago to 1500 years ago, a period of 1,000, that's well acknowledged. There's seafaring, trading Chinese empires going to the west, crossing the Pacific, as well as the Tartar Siberian through the oh my god, why can't it right here? Bering Sea, what we call it now, the Bering between Russia and Eurasia and North Alaska, and that there's always these advanced Starfort. Every single first, one more crucial piece of information is if you look at a city, a mega city, a crucial, like, cultural, ancient, established city of humanity, of the old world, from 400, 500 years ago, it's going to be having these star forts, at least the batteries in them, but more likely, doesn't matter whether it's in Beijing, China, or whether it's in Moscow, Russia, or whether it's in Kazakhstan, whether it's in Japan, whether it's in New York City, or Denmark, or Italy, everywhere of that time period, you'll have your batteries and the overall thing as a star city. And I guess I should probably give a little reference here, as I do have it available, of these maps of more than just the one star fort or star battery, the bastion forts as they're officially called, but rather the star cities that are built on these geometric fractal scales, but very complex, integrated, almost like Venetian, but like Venice itself. Every couple of blocks is a canal. Ancient Beijing, recognized like that, and we'll show so many more here, and that it was a technology and economy of trade, that they were all water-faring, exchanging, could go anywhere, people and society throughout history.
I mean, this ties into
And
Merman and Johannes and all of that, right? I mean, that's why the Pope wears that fish hat, is because, we might even be talking about underwater civilizations. And the Phoenicians, the Venetians, they were seafaring empires.
Do you know of the history of the Nomos with the North African and the Star of Sirius? Do you know about the story of this?
No.
Okay, there's the ancient tribe of the Nomos, Nommos, I think is how it's spelled. And this is where Nebuchadnezzar and the Aryans get the legend of the fish people to begin with. That at some point, the North African tribe of the Nomos tells the story of these fish-like creatures that were horrible looking. And they came up out of the ocean and they taught them about astronomy and where they came from. And they told them about their home planet, which had 2 stars around it that they worshipped and drew symbols of. And the Nomos people drew all these symbols of these 2 stars of where, and they claimed to be from Sirius, the star that we now call Sirius. Okay. And the Nomos,
the dog
people,
star, correct?
Right, the dog star. Guess what? It's a double star. It's a binary star system,
and
supposedly.
the Dogon also have the same story of this too.
And how could the Nomos people have known? How could the Nomos people have known? And it's the Pisces. The Pisces is double fish symbol. And how could the Nomos people, though, have known about a binary star system long before there were supposedly any telescopes, obviously, right? But then the fish people thing goes to Nebuchadnezzar and the Aryans, because then this tribe that was in North Africa, sound familiar, tribe North Africa? Because we're talking about the same Phoenician empire that went from North Africa when Phoenicia went to war against Rome. That's when Hannibal the Cannibal, by the way, they made a movie about it. Hannibal the Cannibal Phoenician, right? Is that chance or you think that's chance or coincidence that Hannibal the Cannibal, the movie is called Hannibal, when the Phoenicians are the known cannibals? That's a Hollywood wink to cannibalism. Anyway, the Phoenicians were the scattered empire that went to war against Rome, and they went and sacked Rome when Rome was kind of down and out. And Rome came back and laid seizure and destroyed all of North Africa and supposedly sowed salt in the fields of these Phoenicians. But the Phoenicians, who were smart, got the heck out of there, and they went global and sailed worldwide. And this all took place back before Jesus. The time of Jesus.
I was just thinking Hannibal marching.
Hannibal the Cannibal, yeah, right. It's like a wink to the Phoenicians
across the Alps, right? Or not the Alps? Yeah, the Alps.
Certainly did.
And it just makes me wonder how big were the elephants, because this kind of comes full circle to
Lord of the Rings.
The Titan topic, right? Because you said you saw some videos on my channel. I have no idea what you saw, but the whole channel started because there's a mountain here in the town that I live in Spain that looks a whole lot like a mountain. I mean, like an elephant. And so when I was watching some of the Mud Fossil University stuff, and then I saw some things from Jay Dreamers, I started to look at the mountain and go, wait a minute. There's more than just, one or two or three things that look like an elephant here. There's an eye socket, and everything is just right in the right place. And so I started exploring this, and I'm a chiropractor, so I was looking at it from a very anatomical perspective, and I got out the anatomy books and looked at eye sockets and the structure of the bones and how all the bones meet in the eye socket, and went up and explored with all of that in mind. And the more I looked, the more I found, and it just, it got nuts, because by now there's about 55 or so anatomical and histological correlations that I've documented in the Unveiling a Titan series. The first video is just an overview of what to most people would be a completely batshit crazy idea. But the second video is all about the eye, the third is about the ear, the fourth is about the tissues of the mountain itself and how those correlate perfectly to bone structure and blood, and the iron ore and the quartz I theorize are the blood and the plasma in the blood that have petrified, and it's just it's something that you kind of have to, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go through the series and check it out. And I would love to hear what you think of it, because you have a lot more ideas about some of these things, or knowledge about some of these things that I do.
It's extremely interesting and believable to me that's, first of all, possible. Yes, I think that, I mean, well, first of all, we've seen examples of petrified parts and so forth, but on a small scale. On a large scale, I believe that it's possible. We know for certain that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that things got really big, like bugs. Like, for instance, there's fossilized evidence of gigantic dragonflies that have a wingspan of how long they say, like, it was like something like 4 feet wide on a wingspan of a dragonfly. Okay. And the reason we don't, the scientist explanation today, the reason we don't have 4 foot wide dragonflies today is because of air pressure not allowing the exoskeleton. There would be an implosion of the exoskeleton of the insects. And that air pressure back then was different, and it allowed for things to grow bigger. Okay, that's what the explanation is for the big trees and the big bugs.
Period. And that, there was also like
everything was huge,
but like the reptiles, like the Ultrasaurus, the supposed like T-Rexes, like the massive of massives. There, and that's the Jurassic, and they claim it's like in the millions, and they claim like there's a couple major catastrophe wipeouts since that time. And then if you also in parallel though put that with the idea of like the different indigenous beliefs and systems, like the Hopi, and there's a whole bunch of them that have the same essential ages
they
of
talk
the
about
sun.
the transformer stones as well.
But with the ages of the sun, and that if you have the Younger Dryas event as the most recent one, and that there was megafauna of like giant beavers, giant sloths, giants compared to now, giant mastodons and giant mammoths and elephants and rhinos. And it's like one step smaller in between the titans, or like the super giants or the demigods or whatever, on that original turtle's back that you got like the troll, whatever, going down. But it's like the different ages of the sun. And each time it's a fractal of a fractal of a fractal, smaller, experiencing itself, potentially. And it's crazy what it all turns out to be. And that like
Well, the book of
there has
the
to
book
be
of
One thing that
Enoch.
I
as
find
well this
absolutely hilarious
matrix,
about this.
this simulation sort of thing, connecting all of these different fractal dimensions and sizes, and that it's interesting how whether it's Slavic or Greek, or it's at least these what we associate as Western culture, but really it's just the indigenous of the Greek, of the Slavic, of the European people, that actually matching the same stories as the Aztec, the Mayans, the shamans everywhere. That there were giants in those days, just like the Bible says, and like that matches in with one major cycle reset ago, and that all the wisdom keepers throughout the world tell of the original cycles, the first cycle or the second cycle of the turtle and the titans, and then the titans destroying or fighting with the demigods or the whatever, like one thing smaller and smaller, and it's quite interesting. That's my rant. I'll let you go.
Well, I was just thinking of the Book of Enoch, which talks about the Titans as well, and it actually gives a dimension for them. It describes them as being 3,000 ells, which equates to roughly a mile tall. And so that's right in alignment with the mountain here that I examined. It's 753 meters in height, but if you look at it, it's the elephant is lying down on its stomach, so it's not standing. It's laying flat. So if it was standing, it would be exactly the same size. And I didn't know anything about the Book of Enoch until I started making videos on the subject. And all of a sudden, I had these mythical confirmations of what I was finding empirically as I went through and started to look at this point by point. And then someone mentioned Troll. I imagine you guys have seen the movie, right? The recent one.
Yes.
And that kind of ties back into the whole Caesar thing, because
Netflix.
the trolls hated the bells, right? And they wanted to destroy the Christians because the Christians were using the bells. And so I wonder, you were talking when I first started asking you questions, you were talking about
that part.
petrification through sound, slowing things down, I guess, to basically just, I don't, who knows how it works. But it's just
hey, you're showing a picture of a church here. There's just something really interesting that happened with
Dutch,
with
I
the Notre.
desperately want your opinion on this. And
the rose windows.
Seismic.
Oh, definitely.
Sinking,
like
earthquake,
liquefaction on that. Yeah, this is a perfect example right here of what everybody is talking about. That they're all over the world. When you're finding structures like this, and you've got an entrance below an entrance below an entrance, and it's 3 or 4 layers tall, but there's no evidence of a previous civilization there before. Obviously, there's evidence of a previous civilization there before that's been covered up, and new entrances have been built higher up. Now, I would think that maybe if the Earth goes into some kind of vibratory thing, I don't know what you would call it, a very low frequency, ultra low frequency vibration, just like a large earthquake, but bigger, that it would cause the water table to come up and mix with the current clays and so forth and come through the limestone. And as you know, as Paul Cook has shown with the geopolymer, when you pass water through limestone and then it goes into a clay, guess what? The clay and the limestone harden into a geopolymer, and it's one of the strongest things known to man, turns into rock. The University of Texas just created geopolymer as a sufficient substitute for concrete now. Go figure, out of the kaolin clay and out of the sodium carbonate and water glass. Just the same shit that Paul Cook's using.
And suddenly there's no need to invoke ancient aliens or anti-gravity technology to explain the building of the megalithic structures around the world.
Now, this church thing, this is just the mind blower. You guys remember Notre Dame burned down, right? Now, 1 week before Notre Dame burned down, there was this Russian guy who used to upload Tartarian mud flood videos. and he'd dissect like all kinds of structures in Russia and all over the place. I don't know what happened to his channel, or if he disappeared or whatever. Anyway,
Philip Druginin?
It might be him. That might be him.
He's the one who coined the term mud flood.
Okay.
Or Global Vision or Philip Druzin.
Okay, it was a Russian fellow, and he was showing the church steeples like this, and he showed the inside, and he used Notre Dame as an example of the cavities of see those nodes are on the outside, kind of looks like coronavirus. Anyway, the nodes on the outside, on the inside, on the inside are the cavities, and the cavities are matching. He found to be similar to a cavity that would be in a magnetron for a microwave. And that you put the electricity in, and it goes through the cavities, and it vibrates, and out comes the radio wave. And then he saw that he said in the video, he was showing that the cymatic pattern that the church glass has, and the leaded glass, the colors of the glass matter because of the frequency that's going to be passing through them. Light-wise, coming in is going to create a resonance in the church that's going to go up through the steeple and out through the top, which is loaded with mercury. And mercury becomes highly activated with radio waves, in case you didn't know, and that can generate its own electricity in its own right if you put a large amount of
antennas.
An antenna, basically, a mercury antenna. And
that shape is similar to the dragonfly and bee wings, right?
He put that video out. He put that video out 1 week before Notre Dame burned down. The steeple. And he used the steeple as the example of the cavities that were inside that would use to generate the wave. And then the thing burns down.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, I'd like to go back and find his video. It'd probably be buried, but I know it was about a week before, because I remember watching the thing on Notre Dame, and the next thing you know, and then to seal the deal that something's up with Notre Dame and the church steeple thing, the night before Notre Dame burned down, here in St. Louis, Missouri, at the St. Louis King of France Cathedral, below the St. Louis Dam Arch, a sudden wind kicked up and blew the roof off the church, and it was the original intact roof for the last 250 years.
Oopsie.
The night before Notre Dame burned down, St. Louis King of France, and King of France, obviously, King Louis, France, Paris, Notre Dame, St. Louis, here in Missouri. So somebody kicked on, and then they built the arch over that cathedral, by the way. The arch is built directly over that cathedral, where that cathedral is in the middle.
That looks like a pyramid there.
So it's basically a destruction of Antiquitech, and people's attention are being drawn to things, and then they're like, okay, we got to make this disappear.
See what he's holding there?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's in the bag?
Something I noticed about this, guys. If you go back through history and you look at all the old pictures, all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar himself, they're all holding one thing in their hand like that, and in the other hand they're holding a rod, and they're all wearing some kind of headdress with something over their third eye, or over the top of their pineal, or right over the top, right? Anyway, if you go to Egypt, it's an ankh that they're holding, or an ankh.
Right?
The Egyptian god is holding the ankh, or the ankh, in their hand, and in the other hand they're holding the staff. And the kings and queens of Europe are holding the rod and the orb in the other hand. And the orb is two spheres. It's a sphere inside of a sphere. You can shake it. It makes a bell sound. Did you know that the orb that the king and queen holds, when you shake it, it makes a sound like a church bell. It goes dung, 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 because it's a sphere inside of the orb.
And so,
it makes a church bell sound when they ring the orb.
Or no, that is the Forbidden City from above. That is a macro. This is a macro chip, and that is the Forbidden City of Peking, aka Beijing, China. This is water around like that. Like this is it's easy, but on macro size. Like now we do the micro, put it into your smartphone, your computer. This was on the terraformed level of the largest size, but using the same material, the megalithic materials of those crystals, those minerals, those like the granite, the quartz, and then these waters, and then the metals in the different domes, like the resonator geometries of it. They're magnifiers for sound, for these different electromagnetic energies, focusing them down, and that these antenna array that they have on top with in between the building that is elevated up in these spires that then has your gold, silver, copper, metal domes that are those resonator ones that then on top of that have these antennas that are actually quite advanced antennas. This one's always quite fascinating. I believe that's in St. Petersburg or Moscow, maybe Paris. I don't know. There's just so many that are several stories upon stories below. Example of what I was rambling about that I wanted to show. I'll find in a second. In the meantime,
Mystaphysics. That's the first time I've seen that word. That's interesting.
And mathemagic and mystaphysics.
Well, mathemagic. I learned that one. I learned that one from Donald Duck.
If you took that star and you folded it origami, it would form into a princess cut diamond. That's weird.
And like, look at these royal crowns or headpieces where this was all gold and then crystals. Crystals can be used and are used as what the heck is it, like in
amplifiers.
radios and amplifiers. Thank you. And like so much more.
The piezoelectric effect.
And, yeah, you got it. And then that you have these layered levels of these toroid connectors, the dielectric, and then the insulators and the alternating levels of them. These are like essentially super designed, like high tech, purposely built resonating energy amplifying devices. Like, look at this on top. Earlier we saw that plasma, right? You had it going up and then forward way.
You know what those shapes are? You know what those plus shapes are? I hate to interrupt, but
these royals would rain on.
That's a phased array radar shape. Those plus shapes are a phased array radar shape.
Say that again, Dutch.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying I hated to interrupt because it totally fits in with everything he's saying. Those plus shapes right there, three-dimensionally, you'll see those same things on what's called an AMISR, an Advanced Modular Incoherent Scatter Radar. If you search it, you'll find the same damn shape. And it's a plus shape that's also used on the top of a HARP antenna. Think of the HARP. Think of HARP with its big antenna with the big plus coming off the top of it. It's a multi-directional. It covers 180 degrees all around you. It's like, yeah, that is frequency transmission, guys.
Well, I was thinking of Viktor Grebennikov, and his work. Like he was doing these levitation, and apparently using beetles' wings. And if you look at them under a microscope, they're similar to dragonfly and bees.
Yeah.
And they're these little cone shapes, and that ties into the guy with the coral castle that was levitating stuff. And people who kind of saw him doing things, they said they saw him with these cone shapes in his hands. So this is some kind of a concentration of energy that allows you to manipulate our physical reality in ways we're taught are impossible.
Yeah, they always got the ankh in one hand and the rod in the other.
What do those represent?
Oh, Stellium, what do you think of this one?
Oh, yeah.
Is this legit or is this bunk?
I don't know. I've seen pictures, actual like higher quality photographs of it.
Oregon,
it looks like people have placed rocks so that it has teeth and I don't know. It's so hard to say. And this is the thing that's so frustrating with the whole Titan research is that there's nobody doing Titan research. Like I'm the only one that's ever done a forensic analysis of a Titan.
Hey,
and actually,
Bernie. I'm sorry to interrupt, Stellium.
You two, we gotta bring you two together.
Tellinger has done something similar. What has he done? I mean, I know he's done great work. I love Michael Tellinger. I just don't.
He's got I'm pretty sure like he spent the last couple of years in South Africa dedicated to opening up like how do you describe it again?
Well,
Geology?
I think he calls it a mud fossil museum because
I'm going
he
with your
thinks.
definition of it. I know. I was trying to go with
Yeah,
your definition because I like it because
I
it's more scientific.
I coined the term biogeology because I feel that mud fossils
Yes,
is disingenuous because
and
it doesn't. There's so many other phenomenon that it can't explain that particular theory. So I think mud fossils is a thing that's part of the larger umbrella that I would call biogeology, which is that much of our mountainscapes and much of our rocks are originally biological in nature, and that mud fossils is a part of it. Instant petrification is another part of it, you know, and titans as well, and all that sort of thing.
You know, 2 pictures ago,
I'd agree
Bernie
with
was
that,
just showing a
like,
gray,
legit
black and white picture. Did you see that, Bernie? Two pictures ago, it was black and white picture. It was a had a phone pole in it. There's something that I've noticed. Everybody that has made videos showing these old photos, I have never seen them talk about. Maybe I've missed it, but it was 2 pictures back, and it was a black and white photo. Anyway, in that photo, there's a phone pole, and you can see that there's wires that are going, you know, between phone poles. But on many of these phone poles that are clearly, there's high definition picture of them, and you can see wire, and there it is. You can see, right? Okay, the nodes. Now,
I'm so stoked you're bringing this up right now because I was thinking it when I saw. Yes, please go on about it. I believe this is mid 1850, 1880 in Russia area, so actual Tartar area. And now I'm going to shut up and please explain it.
Okay, you can see there's wire below it, right?
All of these huge fractal array going up above it with no...
Right. Where are the wires coming off of it? Exactly. Yeah. Where are the wires coming off of it? There are no wires on it. And this is all over the world. I'm seeing these in New York, all over the place. And people have just like, it's just something you wouldn't really think to look at. It's something that you would just assume is there, but it isn't because there's wires that are clearly visible down below. These are some kind of nodes. Now, they look like they're ceramic nodes of some kind. And ceramic was used to insulate electricity. In all these old houses, you'll find these ceramic nodes that go through your wood and stuff. And they'll drill a hole and stick a little piece of ceramic through it. Anyway, these have to be wireless, guys. There's no wires on them, and they're all over the world. And they're transmitting. It looks like they're transmitting one to the other, relaying some kind of signal, some kind.
Yeah, I found these on the walls in San Francisco when I was doing a dive into one of the photo albums. They were literally connected to the building.
So just like mini radar antenna array, essentially. That's wireless radar array. You look at
gotta be wireless power, guys.
There's wires going into the bottom.
Radar tracking setup things that it's exactly looks like these things.
They've got some wires going into the bottom there.
Yeah. Wires are going into the bottom. Like maybe that's like, it's so odd because these are all over the place. There's no wires on them. They're not lights.
And it's like, is it pulling each one here? So you got a ground on each one.
It's pointing to the church.
Oops. Hear me? Am I muted? Yeah, so can you guys hear me now? Am I unmuted or muted?
I hear you.
Yeah,
all good.
Okay. So these top ones on every pole electricity off of the spires and pulling current down, or the drones going up that Mazda and Plasma Channel have done, showing pulling down voltage out of it from the differential. That what these would be are a fractal antenna for harvesting the atmospheric voltage at a lower height, like, you know, like probably the bare minimum, but multiplied fractal the amount of them, the fractal array available, the ground.
You're cutting out a lot there, Bernie.
Yeah, hey, I'm glad you said that, 'cause I thought
structures
they
of
were
whatever they are.
All right, Bernie, are you talking about the electrostatic potential that goes up 100 volts every meter? Is that what you're referring to, harvesting?
Exactly what we're talking about. 100% stellium. And so Matthew Rife on Rife Technologies, him and his partner Hunter, on Friday's video they uploaded on their channel, them replicating where they had their drone take up a Rife star coil, I think it was 1,000 feet into the air, and then getting a few volts. I forget the exact amount because I'm tired right now, but we played it on an episode yesterday. We're going to have Matthew on again in a couple days, go over it all over again, but we're actually reproducing this technology and starting to measure it, apply it, and definitely proof of concepts confirmed by multiple individuals at this point.
Check it out,
The
Bernie.
next
I
is
posted
developing
something in the
anti-probe
chat room.
usage. And that's what
If you get a chance to check it out, there's a video from 1970s from NASA of all things, so whatever. But they did this on the ground. So they did it using radar across a valley and converted the radar, the microwaves, back into electricity using what's called a rectenna array. And that's what that is. That's what that is. If you compare that thing that's on the screen in the black and white photo to what NASA built and put to receive microwaves, it's the same thing down to the shape and everything. And a rectenna, what a rectenna does, simply put, it just takes radio waves, takes your vibrating antenna, and it converts it using a gallium arsenide diode into DC power. Takes power out of the air, goes to the diode, a low pass filter, out the other side comes power. And they found that it's more efficient than using wires. So this is 1970s. NASA recorded the whole thing, and it's wireless power, basically using. And the rectenna is, anybody can make these. You can make one, Bernie. A rectenna. It's simply, all it does is harvest wireless power out of the air, and it takes the vibration of the AC, the alternating current. You know, the radio wave is hitting the antenna, it's vibrating, and it takes that vibration, puts it through the diode, and out the diode comes electricity. And it's 85 to 90% efficient. It's more efficient than gold.
Right.
Yeah.
You connect.
It's crazy.
Then you connect a microwave transformer into that, and you'll get I think 10x more usable, higher voltage stepped up on it, if not more. And then I think also if you then connect it in with these toroid coils running set up with your usage loads on set up through this Joule thief circuit connected off of your atmospheric antenna and your grounding line, you'll actually be able to get quite the multiplied X factor of from a point, or like, you know, a 1.0 volts to 10,000, probably maybe 10,000. Who knows? Like it's just, we're actually solving and combining these technologies, and it's going to be practical to all be using them pretty soon. I don't know if you've seen the Russian videos that have come out over the years of them taking out microwave whatever the big block thing is. I just said the word a minute ago. Connect it in, and you up the amount of voltage you're getting. Transformer, like I think 100 or 1,000x. It's pretty crazy.
I saw a video of a guy who used mercury in an antenna and basically could like access TV channels from all over the world sitting out in the fields, you know.
Yeah.
because
Thank
he
you
was
for bringing that
amplifying
up,
it with
Mike.
mercury.
It's a sphere of mercury at the base of then an antenna going up, or like a spike going up, and that's literally what you will either see. Like we've got. I just ended
You got
the
lots of
show
old
back up
pictures.
of
You got lots of old pictures of these
yeah,
churches that had these
so
balls, and those were later
on
removed,
this
right?
one, yeah, especially the Orthodoxy churches, and that right on the base you have at least one, if not two,
There you go.
of these mercury-filled spheres, and then an antenna going up. But it's not just a simple straight-up antenna; it's actually a fractal antenna that intentionally has these cross and this extra little
looks like it's
sideways
affecting ether around it.
crossing in between.
Guess what? Paul Cook
Yeah,
found
they,
he found the mercury arc rectifier charging stations that were in the old houses.
In
Remember, he
Boston.
found, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, that
but
was an
mercury
amazing
arc
video.
rectifier. This ties in with the rectenna, the mercury arcing, and the mercury would arc with vibration from high power radio waves of some kind being received or transmitted. Dude, it's like evidence of wireless power, basically, guys. I mean, it's like people speculate about it, but like, okay, so here, literally, we have a pole with a bunch of nodes on it that matches a phased array freaking radar, or a rectenna array, and it's pointing at the freaking church steeple. It's in a black and white photo. I'm the first to be all about science, but come on, man, this is like evidence of an ancient civilization that had wireless power right before us. Something happened.
Have you guys
in
seen the video of it's like a Asian style like pagoda building, and it's got the antenna. I mean, it could be faked, it could be some kind of CGI, but it's got a very real look to it to me. I mean, it looks like it's harvesting energy straight out of the ether. It's like it's glowing, and it's making some kind of a sound. I can't remember what the sound was. But
a plasma arc, and then like almost both sound plasma arc as well as like ball lightning plasma arc around it and around the top. And there's 3 or 4 legitimate videos now that I've seen posted and collecting, and then about 20 to 30 pictures of that sort of effect around these areas. So a couple of them on the Eiffel Tower in Paris, while they still had all of the other what looked like antiquitech harvesting it. And the more you see it, it's all that, just like you first showed or had me show of Mr. Fix-It Rick's plasma, and the big one going up, taking about like half of the charge connecting, and then like the 4 corners out of the middle. That seems to be the energy patterns for this.
So they're showing the rectenna array on here.
Would represent the received.
Yeah, this is the NASA video, and they're using the 500,000 watt transmitter, but not all 500,000 watts. They're only using 35, and they beam it across the valley to the array, and that's just a bunch of little microwave antennas that are all connected to gallium arsenide diodes. And the antenna vibrates, goes down, vibrates the diode, out the other side of the diode. There he is, Dr. Dick Dickinson. Just call me Harry.
You sound like a
Right, like there's just
a science conspiracy
so much amazing
theorist.
parallel research.
Right. I mean, how could you have with a name like that? Who needs any kind of intro? You know. But this is proof that in the 1970s they were transmitting wireless power over a mile, and he says this serves as a possible use for wireless power going to space. I mean, there's just the fact that this got buried. Wireless. Why wouldn't they beam this to every Tesla car? And you could use the cell phone towers that are already working on 2.45 gigahertz. Cell phone tower 2.7 to 2.45 gigahertz.
Because that's free, bro. That's free.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There's no money in that.
Can't charge for the fucking air, can you? Well, don't give them any ideas.
Let's make an antenna that we put a little meter on, and we'll charge them for it.
That was what they were doing when they got everyone to buy their own masks. They were charging for the air, but bad air. But
You know,
Dutch, have you seen that video
Dutch,
that I'm talking about of the like Asian pagoda like building that's got the?
oh yeah, I've seen that.
Have
I've
you
seen that. It's got the chanting. It's got the chanting. They're like going on, and then you see coming off the top of the spire, it's putting off what looks like plasma. The official explanation on that is that it was fake CGI, la la la. But I personally, I mean, look, man. If it happened and it got caught on video, nobody would believe it, right? It would take a whole bunch of people to catch it on video live for everybody to believe it, including me, I guess. But I think it's possible that you could generate a plasma using a low frequency. I mean, that's what they do with, like, HAARP is using high frequency to shoot up into the upper ionosphere or atmosphere and strip electrons, just like scuffing your feet across the carpet. The radio waves are scuffing their feet across the atmosphere. And plasma builds up at a certain layer and it starts to glow like the northern lights. But then that plasma is miles wide and it starts to vibrate and it produces very low frequency. So using high frequency from HAARP, they're able to create a big bass drum up in the atmosphere that vibrates low frequency, and that creates glowing. So it stands to reason that if the process was reversed and you were creating using low frequency and putting it up to a very pinnacle point, this gets into earthquakes. This gets into what happens when you get to the very pinnacle point of something. Does it break or do the electrons strip off? And then this gets into what Bernie's doing, which is how do those monoatomic particles strip off that metal? Well, the electricity is scuffing its feet across the carpet of the metal, and it's stripping off little electrons, and it's pulling the monoatomic gold off and going in the water. And so I think it's possible that it could happen out of a big temple like that. It would be cool if that was real.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's possible, yeah. I think that's why Notre Dame burned down. And I think that's why the Church of the St. Louis Cathedral blew off. And I think that's why they built the arch over the cathedral. By the way, the guy who built the arch, Cyril White, guess what he was doing in World War II? The OSS specializing in weather modification. And then he comes and designs the arch for St. Louis. And it points to the west. And ever since then, tornadoes have not hit St. Louis directly. They break and go on either side of St. Louis ever since they built the arch, right along the water source, which is moving water, flowing electrons, capturing that low frequency energy and projecting it out through the arch. The arch is the front for weather modification. I stand by that 100%. St. Louis Arch, if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a giant 600-foot tall steel arch.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And
yeah.
Even more so, it's like you've discovered that the ionization and polarization of the clouds and these vortexes that then trigger these straight up tornadoes by all of these certain type of do I say the name of the type radar?
Oh, you've got it right. It's toroidal. It's a toroidal magnetic field.
The name of the military and the airplane actual radar units, the technology that fires it that causes these tornadoes.
The NEXRAD. The NEXRAD radar. And now this ties in with the St. Louis Arch, for instance. We can use that as an example. By the way, on the other side of the river from the St. Louis Arch are the Cahokia Mounds, the famous biggest mounds in North America are directly across the river from the arch. Anyway, the St. Louis Arch is pointing to the west-northwest towards our radar station at the airport. And the radar stations, NEXRAD radar stations, as well as Terminal Doppler Weather Radar, TDWR, are both powered by klystrons, that thing that I was talking about with CERN earlier. And these klystrons just take a little bit of electricity and zap it up to a lot. They take like 500 watts worth of energy, and in the klystron, it's a tube actually. So we're talking tube technology here, 1920s tube technology. It zaps up the energy up to 750,000 watts and shoots it out of the antenna. And the microwave, high power microwave shooting out at 750,000 watts scuffs its feet across the carpet of the atmosphere. And that charge can build up if they pulse the radar, if they start shooting it like a laser at a very fine beam or a few hundred feet wide, or they pulse the whole radar at once and they do multiple radar stations. So they'll take, for example, St. Louis. They'll take the St. Louis radar station and the Kansas City radar station all the way across the state, and they'll pulse both of them. And where the electromagnetic toroidal forces of both radars overlap in central Missouri, storms form. And then they head to the nearest transmitter and hit it directly at the center. And then they zap the next station, and the storm moves and goes and hits the next station, to the next station, to the next station, to the next station. They're doing it all across the country, all 50 states. And it forms, when they pulse it, instead of the beam, when they do the big pulse, within 2 to 3 days at the most, severe weather forms, hail, tornado, damaging winds, and goes to the center of the transmitter and hits it. So many National Weather Service offices and airports have been hit directly, and they say they don't know why. It's weather control, and they don't care if the station gets taken out because they can rebuild it at a whim. And it's all about owning the weather by the year 2025, which was the Air Force's original plan from the 90s, 1993. They put out the famous owning the weather by the year 2025. And here we are. And they rolled out the radar. The NexRad radar got rolled out in 1988, almost the same month that Ronald Reagan left office, as part of the, well, they didn't say it at the time, but 1988 was the year they rolled out strategic missile defense. And so NexRad really is about creating energy at a distance, and weather radar is just a side effect. It's a front. They use it to observe the weather, but they can use it to create energy at a distance up to and including missile defense, I think, personally. I can't prove the missile defense thing, but I can prove 100% storms are forming at the 50 nautical mile range exactly from the transmitter and going to the center. It just happened last week down in, get this, last week, 2 weeks ago, a giant pulse came from the NexRad radar at Shreveport, Louisiana. It showed up as a giant red and orange pulse. I made a video on it, put it out. I just showed it and said, watch this spot, Shreveport, Louisiana. Tornadoes should form here and go to the center of the transmitter and hit Shreveport. People came out and said, Dutch, there's already severe weather forecast for this area. They talk about all of Louisiana. And I go, I don't know. Look, it just pulsed. Watch Shreveport. Tornado's going to form and hit Shreveport. That night, 12 hours later, guess what happened? A tornado formed at 50 nautical miles from the radar station. Exactly, 50. Poof, on the radar. Tornado suddenly forms. The National Weather Service issues a real tornado warning. So it's not like it's some kind of just rotation. There's actually a tornado on the ground, caused major damage. People die. Went right in and went right into the center of the transmitter. And then, as it passed the transmitter, they reversed polarity on the radar. We watched this all live on my stream. I was showing it live. They reverse polarity, and then boom, this thing just goes gone as soon as it passes the transmitter. And everybody said, well, all the deniers, there's always deniers. They're like, it's just chance. Now I have thousands of examples of this happening everywhere from Hawaii and Puerto Rico all the way to, Dover, Delaware, middle of the winter, Washington State up in the mountains, anywhere where there's an NexRad radar that pulses. The storms form within 50 nautical miles and form and go to the transmitter within 2 days. It's crazy. This is my most controversial discovery. It's gotten me the most shit. It's got me the most shut down. They called me, I got listed as a threat on the Department of Homeland Security website, DHS.gov. Dutch Sense and his viewers are a threat. Might blow up the radar stations. They did it to me on 9/11 of 2011, the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. There's my name on their website. I contacted them, and I said, this needs to get taken down. They wouldn't remove it. Took me a month to get it off their website.
Because it's weather wars, and you're revealing their secrets. That can't be fun for them.
I stumbled on it by accident. It started with me seeing some pulses on the radar, and then storms forming in the winter and going.
You destroy all of their lies and expose secrets that they don't even fully comprehend, but obviously leaves them with no clothing, sort of thing. And it's instead of embracing it and adapting it and helping all of humanity, instead they just turn on you, attack you, try to say it's lies, and try to cover it up as much as possible on every level. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Where you are real science, you've got a track record of putting your theories, your theses forward. You then show it, you document it, stream it live. We recorded it, and then it keeps happening over and over and over time. Happening before it just becomes well, this is fact. This is the way it works, and let's move forward with it. Stop denying.
Everyone in the chat's like, good job, Dutch. Congrats, Judge. Like, you get on their shit list. You're obviously doing something right.
Oh, guys, much love. Bernie's showing on screen the geopolymer that I made. Paul Cook had uploaded a video forever ago showing this Egyptian geopolymer mix made from the Geopolymer Institute, made of kaolin clay and sodium carbonate and limestone. And I decided to copy the method that they showed from the Geopolymer Institute and make my own. And it's strong. And then Texas A&M University has now come out and confirmed that it's like better than concrete. It's 90 megapascals, which is like double Portland cement. And it's kaolin clay mixed with sodium carbonate, mixed with water first. So you start with water first. Then you mix in the kaolin clay. Then you mix in the sodium carbonate. Then you mix in the water glass and anything else you want to put in for Stonewise to make it look Stonewise. And it hardens within a few hours. And within a few days, it's cured. And it's awesome. Geopolymer, my wife and I are going to be using it to be making we're making some backsplash stuff for our kitchen. We're just going to, put it up and make any color you want. You could put dye and stuff in it, and make it different colors. It's really cool. And it was hidden from history. Obviously, this is the shit we're talking about. That I think that they made a glowing version of this.
High quality, and it's advancing, and there's actually about 20 of us that are about to do our own geopolymers and start the first molds, as you've already done, and even more experiments, including different aspects, like each of our own individual crafts, monatomics.
You guys are familiar with the two-part series that Observation Deck did, right? Observation Deck did 2 parts on geopolymers, and was going through a lot of the old texts, and they weren't just talking about it openly. I don't remember if they used the term geopolymer, but some of those texts had recipes in them, so you might want to check that out if you haven't seen it.
Roman concrete, sometimes they call it, or something. Or there's also the schist, or several others.
Recognize that channel.
All right, we just reached the 3-hour mark. This is Stellium 7 for all that don't know. Great work, Stellium, Mr. Mike. We also have Luke's Ancient Historia right here. And of course, the absolutely epic and legendary and pillar work like no other Dutch since, and all of his forecastings that the 112th power cut to your house, not to mention all the internet cuts and interruptions they do to you all the time. We will be back for a multi-stream, multi-date on Valentine's. You've committed to us, and we will have the people's channels that we're live on right now, as well as Paul Cook and Alien Scientist. I think we'll also be joining in. Any last words, gentlemen? I've stolen 9 hours of your time. Good Dutch, it's been a pleasure. We're going to be doing this again very soon. Mike, Luke, we will.
Thanks for the invite. It was fun to jump in.
Thank you very much, guys. It's an absolute pleasure as always.
It's been great meeting all of you guys. All of you, I can't wait to talk to you. Valentine's Day. Much love, everybody. That'll be great.
See you later, guys.
All right. Thank you. What an epic 3-hour improv. We will catch everyone on the next one. See you soon. Love you all.
Adios,
have a blessed
amigos.
day. And where are we? There we go.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you. And clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic
like
resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. And just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because to change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because to change is too difficult? Wake up.